for Jonathan Taylor. There he goes again. 50, 40, down the far sideline. He might do it again. 10, 5, touchdown. I-N-D-Y.
Eastern Conference Championship has been captured by the Indiana Pacers.
Alex Pillow wins the 109 Indianapolis 500.
This is the Fan Morning Show with Kevin Bowen and James Boyd.
I don't know if the joke makes total sense, but somehow drowning out there in the water, the Cleveland Cavaliers, after that epic collapse last night. Good Wednesday morning to you. If it's going to rain in one of our favorite weeks of the year, might as well be on Tuesday and Wednesday, or I guess even Monday as well. Get it all out of the way as we await Carb Day coming up Friday, race day Sunday. I'd say weather looking a little bit better. We'll get some updates throughout the week and keep you posted of what's going to happen here as we get ready for the 110th running of the Indianapolis 500. But James Boyd, last night, the Cleveland Cavaliers led by 22 points with 7 minutes and change to go in Madison Square Garden. And if you know a Cavs fan today, you give them a hug.
That means we both have to give a hug to our fill-in producer at times, Caleb Zuber.
Caleb Zuber, Hayden Clark, Cavs fan. Shout out to former IU legend Thomas Pritchard. Trying to think of any other Cavs fans.
My boy Nate
Atkins, Cavs fan.
I know Nate Atkins is sick. That's one of my best friends, and I did not text him last night, Kevin, because the number might have got deleted. I might have got blocked because that was horrible. Horrendous effort by the Cavs in that fourth quarter. They were outscored. I think the broadcast said from the last 7 minutes through overtime, 44-11. Just an inexcusable loss. And not to take some victory lap, but I did tell you yesterday that I trust Jalen Brunson more than I trust Donovan Mitchell and James Harden. And boy, was that reinforced yesterday because those two went MIA with not the season on the line, but a huge win on the line, whereas Jalen Brunson came alive, and they called him Captain Clutch there in New York, and he was clutch for sure.
It's just unbelievable. The Sam Merrill 3 there at the end of regulation, I thought for a second that the Cavs were going to survive all of that, and then overtime was one of the more, honestly, funnier, probably 5 minutes of basketball to see two different teams going in two vastly different directions. So the Knicks, with an unbelievable comeback, hunting James Harden time and time again, they are up 1-0 in that series. First time in NBA history that each of the game ones of the conference finals go to overtime. So we'll get the Western Conference going again tonight. That will be game 2. It'll be the Thunder. Rare kind of backs against the wall, if you will, for the Oklahoma City Thunder tonight at home. It'll be Thunder and Spurs as we get into the every other day format. Fever back in action tonight. It's a clean injury report, so good news on the Aaliyah Boston front. They take on the Portland Fire. They are a massive favorite, 13.5-point favorite over the expansion team from Portland. Colts have got a media availability later today, so we'll be up there for that. They will start their OTAs. Again, that's the 11-on-11 portion of the offseason program coming up tomorrow. And I guess a little bit of an Alexander Rossi update we can get to here in a bit. Mark Dykton, good morning to you.
Good morning.
How you doing?
Not happy. Cubs stink right now.
It's been a lot of losing lately.
It's been a lot of losing, and the bats are going quiet, and I don't like it. And I don't like that the pitching injuries are seemingly now catching up. So, not great. I know how the Reds, being a Reds fan, feels like these days.
I could have sworn the Reds won last night, so I don't know what you're talking about.
That's a rare
The
win.
White Sox did as well.
The Cubs losing to the wrong team, too, right?
Yeah, so the Brewers, once again, just Joel's like, oh, they can't hit home runs. The Brewers aren't very good. I'm like, stop trying to jinx the Brewers. They're just fine. They always find ways to win. Mizorowski's very good.
But Joel Erickson's he's on cloud 9 right now with the Spurs after game 1 there. So
no one better than Joel right now. The Brewers are winning. The Spurs are winning.
He's on top of the world. Coming up 8 o'clock, Marshall Pruitt going to join us. We had Marshall on last year from Racer. For those that follow the 500 or follow IndyCar motorsports in general, he's certainly one of the main covers of the entire sport. Does an outstanding job. So, James, I think maybe some of those questions, earlier in the week you were asking, hey, what was exactly going on with Kyle Collette and Jack Harvey's cars that they had to go to the back of the field? Marshall is the guy that can answer a lot of that stuff.
Also want to ask about the inability to build a full backup car. Curious about what are the limitations there, or why there are limitations there.
Yeah, and again, the Alexander Rossi update. He recorded his podcast last night with James Hinchcliffe. Saw a couple still shots from it. They actually did it at Cracker Barrel. I think we mentioned that yesterday.
Shout out to the pancakes.
Couple laughs about that there. He had the right leg propped up, and it was quite a significant wrap on that right leg. Again, right ankle specifically. He mentioned on the podcast there, bone bruise or bone issue, small bone in the right ankle is why he needed to have that. Sounds like he's going to be able to take that wrap off here, I believe, today. And then, again, the expectation is he'll be in the car coming up on Friday, weather permitting, 11 a.m., that final practice time for Carb Day there. He had definitely a smaller wrap on the left hand. And, I go back to the conversation we had with Kevin Lee yesterday in, saying in today's day and age of motorsports, with the amount of tools on your steering wheel, don't overlook the finger injury either. That is a big, big deal. So, I would assume, and, Kevin pointed this out, Alexander Rossi could probably do some sort of simulator work, even though he is unable to get on the track in that car until Friday at 11 o'clock there. But, it was definitely quite the sight to see Alexander Rossi in that big of a wrap and having to have that leg propped up and being like, wow, in, 72 hours, you're going to be in your car for the final practice, and then 48 hours after that, you're going to be driving to the 110th running of the Indy 500 there. So we'll continue to monitor that storyline. Caitlin Clark will be the grand marshal of the Indy 500 coming up on Sunday. I don't think much of a surprise to anyone on this. The Fever schedule really cooperates this year for that. They play tonight. They play Friday. They don't play again until next Thursday. After that, obviously, she is A, Caitlin Clark, B, Gamebridge is one of her, huge endorsers. So all of that kind of checks out there. So she will do the drivers to your cars. That will be the command that Caitlin Clark will give on Sunday.
I had a chance to talk to Stephanie White about this yesterday. Actually, Scott Agnes, friend of the show, Fieldhouse Files, asked her the question about being the Grand Marshal. And, Stephanie White is a local legend. Indiana Basketball Hall of Fame member, 1995 Miss Basketball. So she knows a thing or two about this state and what it means to be the Grand Marshal. I don't think she's ever held that honor, but she tipped her cap to Caitlin and believes it will be. She said she wasn't sure if it was Caitlin's first trip to the 500, but it might be because typically the WNBA season doesn't really allow her to have this kind of gap. So either way, Grand Marshal, huge honor for Caitlin, well-deserved, and I'm excited to see her reaction to being a part of the Indy 500.
So if we're going to look a little bit at exactly kind of the race day schedule so far, driver intros will be at 11:47. You'll have the unbelievable vocals of one Jordan Sparks for the national anthem at 12:24. Caitlin Clark will again say drivers to your cars at 12:29. Jim Cornelison, gosh, Mark, this has got to be almost a decade for him now.
Yeah, he's been on the show or the station annually for, probably close to 10 years now.
And back home again in Indiana, of course, after Jim
Back
Neighbors.
home again in Indiana.
Well, move aside. James Boyd's taking the mic.
Boy, if Cornelison gets a little cold on Saturday nights,
Yeah, I'm just trying to think.
Romeoville Kid will slide over there.
I'll tell you what, I probably heard that song within the last 2 years 15 times, and it's great every time. You're at a big event when Back Home in Indiana is being sung.
The opera singer that is Jim Cornelison there, of course, Chicago
Jim Boyd. Okay.
Blackhawks national anthem singer there. And then, of course, Roger Penske, the command to start. And then Brendan Fraser for the green flag. Is that George of the Jungle, Mark? Brendan Fraser?
Mm-hmm.
Forgot he was an Indy native.
Yeah, he is. And Ashley, again, big fan of him. So I've got him and Pato Award that I'm dealing with now. So I'm getting it on both ends.
Boy, that's the story of your life.
She's like, we got to get there early. Where's he going to be? I'm like, good Lord.
Man.
You sure you want me to come with you?
I didn't have getting it on both ends at 7:09 on the bingo card there. There might be a baseball analogy for that, but I'll just leave it right there.
I would leave it there as well.
Yeah, probably don't want to go there here at 7:09. Yeah, Marshall Pruitt going to join us coming up. Michael Grady, speaking of Indy Zone, is that right,
Back
Mark?
on the airwaves, 9:30.
9:30 for MG. He was a busy man early round of the playoffs. I think a ton of WNBA on his docket, but for those that have not, for some reason, been watching too much of the hardwood, you're missing out on Michael Grady because he is doing a whole lot from a national standpoint. I'm curious how the Thunder respond tonight. I feel like it's just kind of a given that we're used to, oh, yeah, they will respond. And, if you look at the finals, they obviously more often than not, backs against the wall. If you look at that Nuggets series last year that went to 7, they did that. But remember, James, game 1, the Spurs had 21 turnovers. It's not like the Spurs were flawless. We'll see about De'Aaron Fox. I mean, that's a key component to San Antonio. This to me, I don't think it's just a slam dunk. This series is going to be 1-1. I think San Antonio, if you're ranking the best teams left, the 2 best teams are clearly out there in the West.
Yes. You have 4 teams left, and Cleveland already got sent home yesterday. That series is over. I picked them to lose that series going into it, but when you got to win 5 games because you blew one of them, it's really over. And I continue to look at that Western Conference Finals as a chance for Wemby to establish himself as the best player in the world. We feel that way after game 1, perhaps, but in order to really solidify that, you got to dethrone the top dog. That is SGA and the Thunder. So excited for game 2, and man, if it delivers like game 1, we could have a really great series on our hand, because that probably was, for me, Kevin, not trying to be a prisoner of the moment, that probably was a top 15 playoff game I've ever watched. That was incredible.
Oh boy, we might need your 1 to 15 list.
Ooh, I have to think about that, but yeah, it's up there for me. And again, I'm talking about the Spurs and OKC, not that trash that I watched the Cavs basically throw out there yesterday in the fourth quarter in overtime.
We have some early odds on Colts games for this season. I would say a couple of interesting notes on that front there. Potentially we can go over the new starters. We got about half dozen of them this year for the Colts. Where have they gotten better? Where have they not? We'll continue our Indy 500 draft. What would be the best storyline coming up to take the checkered flag Sunday here? And we'll continue to keep you posted from a weather standpoint for Carb Day and also for Race Day coming up on Sunday. Kevin Bowen, James Boyd, and Mark Dykton. This is the Hensley Legal Group Command Center. It happens. Hire Hensley. Thank you for spending this Wednesday morning with us. I think the rain is finally out of the Indy area. Was anybody driving yesterday in that? Like some of
yes. We just left Kroger in Brownsburg. Within 30 seconds, it started downpouring big time.
There were multiple streets where I'm like, I literally cannot turn down that street because it was flooded.
Yeah, I mean,
car was going to turn into Noah's Ark.
I mean, it was insane. I mean, obviously, it's the amount of rain in such a short period of time, but that was wild yesterday.
Yeah, the girls saw that we got like a flash flood warning, and like, how high, is the water going to be over our heads? I'm like, no, it's not. It doesn't mean that. But they assume flash flood means like, yeah, we're going to be Noah's Ark in it or something. I'm like, no. Let's relax a little bit.
Definitely overcast here and much chillier, I would say, today than what we've had kind of summer-like in recent days. Looks like it'll be a little bit chillier compared to what we have had. So, again, thank you for starting your Wednesday morning with us. Fan Morning Show right here, 93.5 107.5, The Fan.
The Morning Checkdown on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
This morning checkdown brought to you by Bet365. With Bet365 early payout, you win. Even if they lose, get paid out instantly when your team goes up big. Even if they blow the lead later, Bet365. Winning is everything. You got a gambling problem? Call 1-800-9-WITH-IT. Must be 21 or older and physically located in the state of Indiana. James Boyd, they might as well call that the Cleveland Cavaliers bet after last night. The definition of a big lead blown on one of the bigger stages you'll find.
Yeah, we should be able to change their name to the Cleveland Crumblers after that, because all they did was crumble down the stretch. Terrible performance from your two stars, James Harden and Donovan Mitchell. And I watched a montage last night, Kevin, of them hunting James Harden on defense every single possession there in the clutch, and it worked pretty much every single possession.
Yeah, no need to tell your kids a scary story tonight. Just watch that.
Yeah, that was a little spooky.
44-11. That was the run in the final 7 minutes of the game. It's one thing, like, when I see it, I have to say it in my head like 4 or 5 times to actually believe it. 22-point lead with 7 minutes to go. The Cleveland Cavaliers, and that Sam Merrill 3 I thought was in, honestly, to end regulation. I thought Mike Breen is going to have to give us one of those rare, the road team is going to get the bang, honestly, a little Tyrese Halliburton. But in overtime, the Cavs scored 3 points. So for the first time in NBA history, both game ones go to overtime. Spurs up 1-0, Knicks up 1-0. We'll get game 2, Western Conference Finals tonight. 6.5-point favorite, Oklahoma City. You curious at all, or you think it's 1-1 and you're not sweating it too much?
I think it's going to be 1-1. I'm not sweating it too much because OKC's been such a dominant team the last 2 years. And as great as Wemby is, and he might have established himself as the best player in the world, the guy on the throne is SGA, who, by the way, became the 14th player in NBA history to win back-to-back MVP. So he's no slouch. That team is no slouch. And really it comes down to Chet Holmgren. If Chet Holmgren has a pulse tonight, they should win.
Speaking of tonight, the Fever back in action. It will be the Portland Fire. That's a 7 o'clock tip. You can hear it over on our sister station. Pregame coverage with John Nolan and company. Bria Goss, the color announcer, she's going to join us coming up here in the 9 o'clock hour. 6:30 coverage begins, 7 o'clock tip. Again, 13.5-point favorite. And James, the Aaliyah Boston news clearly is good, as she is not even on the injury report for tonight.
Yes, says she's feeling good. She mentioned yesterday at practice that it sounds like this lower leg injury is something that she's kind of been managing and dealing with since the initial injury that she suffered in Unrivaled back in February. Of course, Unrivaled, for those who aren't familiar, is the 3-on-3 professional league that a lot of WNBA players play in. But crisis avoided. Just got to monitor it, and we'll see how things shake out in the future.
On the diamond, if you weren't postponed like the Indianapolis Indians were yesterday, the Reds got to win. The Cardinals got to win. Guardians, 1-run win over the Tigers. And Mark Dykton, the Cubs, losing 5-2 there to the Brewers. And you're worried about more than just the losses right now. You're correct?
Bullpen stinks. Pitching has been struggling big time with all the injuries, and the bats are going quiet. So not ideal. And, of course, the Brewers, down 5.5 just a few weeks ago, is now taking the lead of the NL Central.
We'll get more IMS announcements throughout the week. Again, cars not on the track today and tomorrow. Weather updates. Yeah, boy, I guess the percentages have gone up a little bit for Sunday for rain. Hopefully, that rain will be obviously later in the day. As we move along in the week, we'll get more concrete info there. It honestly looks a little bit like kind of Carb Day and Race Day. Maybe you're in the same boat. Better in the morning, potentially early afternoon, and then that's where the questions start to arise. So for Carb Day, practice is 11-1. Do the Wienermobiles have rain tires, Mark Dykton?
I don't know. They're out there at the track already, but I have no idea.
You haven't examined those wieners?
I would love to.
Okay.
Get under those things, see what's going on, the undercarriage.
Thought you actually cared about your job here, so I'd love to see a little effort out of you from that.
Does my media pass work there? I'm here to inspect the wieners.
You're probably not.
That might get you kicked out.
You're probably not the first person that's uttered that phrase in 110 years over at that place there. And then concert to follow. So obviously some dicey weather for those events. Then Sunday, Green Flags 12:45. So that's the game we're playing. And obviously, Mother Nature not only could impact the race, but impact Catherine Lake's attempt at 1,100 miles. So unfortunately, Mark, I think when we get to the Carb Day show, we're going to have to be booking a weather-related guest, which I don't love doing that, but we need to provide that info. So that'll probably be a part of our Friday plans.
Are you feeling like you jinxed them? Because you were talking weather again, and we've always said, Kevin, be wary.
No, I don't. Can you imagine if I had that type of pull?
Maybe that's the one thing you have pull in is the weather.
The only thing it was a miracle that I got a burger. Thank you to Cluster Truck for that.
There you go.
We got an Indy 500 draft we need to get to here on the other side. Again, the Alexander Rossi update from yesterday. He went on his own podcast to provide that update there. He is rocking definitely a protective wrap, a pretty significant wrap, honestly, when you see it on that right leg. It's the ankle injury. He mentioned the injury was to a small bone in his right ankle. And this, boot wrap is to keep the swelling down. It sounds like it's going to come off today. That's the plan. And then, again, the plan is he's in the car Friday at 11 a.m. He mentioned that, from a crash standpoint, that, he was going a little bit slower the previous lap to try and save fuel. He was on, he goes like lap 24, 25 of a typically 30 lap stint there from a tire standpoint. And he said there's kind of that sweet spot with these cars. They are built to go fast, but if you go too fast, obviously that can happen. And if you go too slow, that also can happen. So he said he kind of got out of that sweet spot, and you obviously saw what happened there. So that's the update from Alexander Rossi. Again, Caitlin Clark announced yesterday that she is the Grand Marshal. Do you guys know any duties specific to her besides drivers not start your engines, drivers to your cars? That's the command she'll give.
I'm not sure, but hopefully we get a chance to ask her today. Get an update for you.
Again, fever. That's what James is referencing there, the fever in action tonight. So Caitlin Clark will be speaking to the media a little bit later today.
Does she need to do any prep like Signetti has to with the pace car? Or she just kind of go out there and do her thing?
I'm going to guess Caitlin Clark has lived a life where I know 350,000 people is a big, big number, but I think she'll be quite comfortable in the environment that she has put in on Sunday. But I guess that's a lot of people she is talking to in one setting, right?
Yeah. Brendan Fraser can give her some help or something, maybe.
Yeah, and I think they've had, there are other Grand Marshals. I don't know, Mark, maybe you can find the list. I mean, it's definitely a note, kind of a famous celebrity dignitary type of angle to it here. I think it's a lot of, I assume she'll be speaking to a lot of the big time sponsors that are affiliated with this, but then from a crowd standpoint, it's drivers to your cars. That'll be the big thing that she does there. Right after National Anthem and back home again in Indiana. And then, of course, Roger Penske giving the command to start your engine.
Most recently, it's been like Scott Pollard, Tamika Catchings, Peyton Manning's done it, Patricia Heaton, Dick Vitale, Anderson Cooper, the Butler basketball team. Yeah, so there you go. Kind of who's who.
That's a variety. Right
That is a variety.
There. How about Jason Kidd getting the scissors yesterday?
Yeah, I think Shams Charania reported he still had 4 years and over $40 million left on his contract.
And they just hired the old Raptors GM, Masai Ujiri, right?
Yeah, but I was reading some stuff. They didn't always see eye to eye. I guess they might have a little beef before they became coworkers, and that didn't last long.
Super Bowl announced yesterday to Nashville in 2030.
It's going to be a mess.
Draft announced to Minnesota in 2028. I am curious about this. Does that have any dominoes against Indy's hope to get the 2030 draft? Is it a little too Midwest-y from an event standpoint there?
Well, you know how I feel about it. My thought is if you land the draft, does the NFL say, well, okay, if we give you the draft, you have to give the combine? And do you look at it like, yes, for that one weekend, the draft will probably bring in more revenue and attention to our city, but in the long run, is it better to try to keep this stranglehold that we have on the combine?
Yeah, and again, the combine obviously annual. I can hear you out there, James, because I think if it were ever to leave Indy even for just a year, now you have the rest of the NFL intrigued, open-minded about, wait a minute, this thing can finally leave Indianapolis. I want to get my hands on the combine there. So, because Cincinnati has been a rumor for the 29 draft. So, Minneapolis 28, Cincinnati 29, 30 was kind of the Indy hope, and then again the 30 draft announced to Nashville there. So, oh boy,
The draft has been pretty Midwest heavy though, because like they were in
It
Detroit in
has.
2024, Green Bay 2025.
but of course the Super Bowl is not.
Right.
And so Mark, I'm kind of pointing to both things. If you already have the Super Bowl in that central location, are you really going to go combine in Indy, Super Bowl in Nashville, and then the draft coming back to Indy, all in the same 3 or 4 month span?
I would say most reporters probably like the centralized situation with that, as opposed to like flying all the way out to the West Coast for something.
Reporters, sure, but they don't decide these things.
Well-
NFL owners typically have a whole lot of say in how these events
The next owners' meetings, I'll get it done, Mark.
You please
do take place. Yeah.
Get some free swag and get it done.
Can you imagine bachelorette parties being planned for the second week of February?
Oh my God.
How great!
They're like,
would those
what's going
videos be?
on? That's when the
Oh my
Titans need to do
God.
their schedule release. is
Why
during
are
that.
these rooms so expensive? Pedal bars are $5,000.
Why has this guy got a Vikings helmet on and no shirt?
He's got a skull chant he keeps on doing every time we walk up and down Broadway here. That announcement yesterday from the NFL. All right, coming up on the other side, we'll continue our Indy 500 draft. Some interesting odds to note on the Colts' upcoming season in regards to their schedule. And at some point today, I think we got to get back to what Kurt Signetti will be doing this weekend. We had Doug Bowles on about a couple weeks ago. At this point, he shared a little bit into everything that Kurt Signetti has to do from a pace car standpoint. I think you'll find it interesting if you missed that. It is the Fan Morning Show here. A little weather update coming from Amber Hardwick, Hensley Legal Group Command Center, where we are. It happens. Hire Hensley.
We are tracking a cloudy and cooler day ahead. There's a chance for lingering showers, especially areas southeast of Indianapolis. We'll see an afternoon high near 64 degrees. Mostly cloudy tonight and cooler with lows in the upper 40s. I'm Fox 59 meteorologist Amber Hardwick for The Fan.
Galaxy Concrete Coatings, that is indoor and outdoor concrete. That would be garages, basements, patios, porches, and sidewalks. You head to galaxyconcretecoatings.com, and that's where you'll see plenty of pictures and styles that are available to you, and I think that's a good place to start. Okay, is there something that kind of matches what we're looking for home-wise or workplace-wise? And then from there, manufacturers upgrade the warranty from 15 years to lifetime, so that checks out. And also, if you have any questions about the efficiency or just how quickly in and out they can be, new sidewalk, new front porch for us at the Bowen household, in and out in about 24 hours. So not too much of a hassle whatsoever. So again, that's indoor and outdoor concrete, garages, basements, patios, porches, sidewalks. Head to their website. You'll see the pictures and styles available to you and find something that can make sense. Galaxy Concrete Coatings, indoor and outdoor concrete.
This is the Fan Morning Show with Kevin Bowen and James Boyd.
He's got it out of the short chute. Newgarden by 3 car lengths, leading out of turn 4, Mark James.
Joseph Newgarden with a strong run into turn number 3. Pato O'Ward makes a run, but he will not catch it. Joseph Newgarden goes back to back. He makes the improbable finish into turn number 3. He makes the pass, makes it stick. Joseph Newgarden goes back to back, wins the 108th running of the Indianapolis 500-mile race.
Certainly one of the great finishes just a couple years ago, Newgarden versus Pato. And that one, I believe, right in front of Jake Query in turn 3 with Joseph Newgarden getting it done. I think that has kind of helped continue to create the Pato Award fanfare, a bit of the bridesmaid if you look at where he has finished here and how seemingly he's up there every single year late in the race. And we'll see where he's at from a car standpoint because, again, he was involved in that Alexander Rossi crash on Monday. Outside of row 2 for Pato Award, was Ashley Dykton in the line at Kroger and Speedway yesterday, Mark Dykton?
She was not. She was at work, and she's like, you should bring the girls. I'm like, there is no way I'm doing that. No offense to Pato, but I was like, I can only imagine the line there, the storms in the area, and I'm like, all you want me to do is take a picture of them, and then, then you're going to kick me to the curb.
I'm not losing my family for Pato Award is basically what Mark is saying.
Basically, yeah.
Is this the reason why we haven't been able to get Pato on air? Is Mark just seemingly letting these emails just sit in his inbox?
She has asked. She's like, are you going to get him on the show? I'm like, I would love to, but I also am afraid of, oh, could you give me his number?
Thank you for those calls. We continue to play them. Leading into the 110th running coming up on Sunday. It is wild, and Mark, brought this up a little bit earlier in the week with Alex Palou. He is currently, for Sunday, a plus 250 favorite to win this race. So that is simply, for those out there that do not follow it, that is a $10 bet to win $25. That is absolutely insane odds from a favorite standpoint. Like, I cannot recall the last time we have had an Indy 500 driver be that good of odds, small of odds, I guess I should say, to win the race. I mean, usually it's something of like a plus 600 or plus 750. And I brought up this example last night, for example, if the Cleveland Cavaliers just would have finished that game, their odds going into winning that game were plus 220. So, I mean, think about it. The Cavs, Knicks, James, you were like, yeah, it wouldn't stun me if the Knicks were lost game 1 and the Cavs won. And yet Alex Palou, who obviously is a dominant car, great car, he's won all these races, but in the Indy 500, you got 32 other mistakes that you've got to avoid.
Yeah.
A pit stop can totally derail your day. I mean, you just never know.
And it's an individual sport to a degree where your team can't pick you up if you have an off night. It's you, and you got to be on. That's it.
Well, it's an individual sport with 32 very risky cars around you, too, which, that's the other part of it. Just all it takes is one person to.
That's what I get reminded of, Kevin, when I see some of the crashes, is that, oh, yeah, they are going very, very fast. And the decisions that you make, if you're even a half second off, that could cost you a victory or cost you your safety going at that speed.
Yeah, wrong place, wrong time, right?
Yeah.
Otto Ward uttered that phrase the other day, and, that could impact him potentially coming up here. So, boy, those odds for Palou, they're just, somebody that follows it closer than I'd be hard-pressed to find the last time that we have had a favorite have that small of odds right there. It's just wild. Speaking of odds, I saw that the some of this has already come out, and again, we are very, very early on this, but the Colts 2026 schedule, of course, came out last week. James, do you happen to see the individual games for how many times the Colts are favored out of their 17 games this season?
I have not seen this.
Okay, so again, individual odds in May, caution flag is, waved there to continue the racing analogy, but what would you guess? Out of the 17 games on the schedule, they are favored how many times?
I'm going to say they're favored 8 times.
They are favored in 6
Dang.
of the 17. When we debated this last week, I think you pointed out the first 5 games. That was kind of the stretch that you pointed to as a front-loaded stretch. And again, that's Baltimore, at Kansas City, Houston, in London against the Commanders, and then Pittsburgh, and that's at Pittsburgh. Those are the first 5 games. They are indeed underdogs in each of those first 5 games. Now, when I was referencing kind of the front-loaded nature to the schedule, I stretched it a little bit further. I think you could honestly go all the way through. Dallas is a week 9 game. Kind of the figure I was pulling out for that was if you look at the first 9 opponents, 8 of those 9 have been in the postseason either last year or the year prior. And if you look at the Vegas odds for those first 9 games, guys, they are underdogs in 8 of the 9. 8 of the 9. A home game against Tennessee is the only time they are favored in the first 9 weeks.
I thought overarching, they're only favored at home 4 times. Out of the 8 home games, they're only home favorites 4 times. So I don't think the Lucas Oil Stadium is giving them very much of a home field advantage.
Man. Well, I guess that's why you play the games.
Since James didn't look at it, what would you venture to guess their biggest point spread is as far as being favored and being underdogs?
Favorite at home against Tennessee, probably. Biggest underdog, Sunday night at Kansas City.
So their biggest underdog is actually a tie between the Kansas City Chiefs at +5.5, the Philadelphia Eagles +5.5. Those are their, and the at Houston is +5.5 actually too. So they're under +5.5 dogs on 3 of the games. Their the most biggest favorite is against the Dolphins in Week 10, 6.5 point favorites.
Yeah, again, to me, it was just another reminder of when we talked about this last week when the schedule came out, just how front-loaded it is. And I would continue to stress, I think the front-loaded nature is through the entire first half of the year. It's not just through London, because if you look at the game in London, week 4 that is, against the Commanders, that starts a stretch of 4 or 5 away from home. In the road games, Pittsburgh, Minnesota, and Jacksonville, which they might as well just put at hell instead of at Jacksonville on the schedule there in week 8. That to me is, pretty daunting. When you look at really the first kind of 2 months of this season. Again, 8 of the first 9 games underdogs. Now, we obviously should mention, if you look at those first 9 games, we say underdogs in 8 of them. 4 of them are less than a field goal. So obviously you have some very close odds. And of course, a lot of this can and will change. But to me, it was another reminder of just the front-loaded nature of the schedule. And I think in an ideal world, you would not have had that. You would have had more of a back-loaded nature because, yes, Daniel Jones' situation is part of the reason why I say that, but also defensively, you're incorporating, 5 new starters? Probably on defense? Right now, you will start, correct me if I'm wrong, James, if you're going to go play a game tomorrow, 3 of your 11 defensive starters have never played a snap in the NFL.
And those 3 would be C.J. Allen on paper, A.J. Halsey on paper.
And Justin Wally.
Yes, I forgot he did miss all of last year. So, yeah. Wow. When you put it like that, boy.
And maybe even your first defensive back sub, Hunter Wooler, could also. Your pseudo 12th starter, 13th guy, would also fit into that category. So, I say it mainly for Daniel Jones and the Achilles rehab, but also defensively, that is something that I would point out as well.
So, when I look at the roster construction, I know changes had to be made, Kevin, but the overall theme that I'm thinking in my head is it enough? And right now, I just don't feel like that. Part of me wants to say the Colts will turn the corner. They will figure it out. But I just haven't been given enough to bet on or believe in. And it all hinges, honestly, probably on the quarterback's health, mobility. How does he look when he's coming off the Achilles tear? And then beyond that, as you mentioned, just a lot of massive changes around him because in a weird way, I go back and forth, Mark and KB, between, oh, the Colts are basically running it back to, oh, wait, they're definitely not. Because there's elements of both within how the team is currently constructed. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I was going to say run it back is not, I think, the right phrase to use for this year's team. Yes, I understand why people say it because they think about Daniel Jones and Alec Pierce and they think about the lack of outside of the building moves and they just say run it back. But also, you've lost 6 starters that have combined to start nearly 500 games for you. There is not, I mean, there is maybe the first year of Ballard would be the only year you point to in the Ballard era, which is now a decade long, that you've had this much roster turnover. I mean, we're talking multi-year starters, and in some cases, big-time multi-year starters in the case of Braden Smith or Michael Pittman Jr. or Kenny Moore II, Zaire Franklin. It's the first time that you'll have a different signal caller to your defense since 2021. I mean, that's 5 years ago. I don't think running back is the right, I don't know, we probably should come up with like a better phrase because it's not total rebuild by any means.
Right.
But it's also not really a run it back.
But I think when I hear that term, Kevin, and I agree with what you're saying, but my only pushback would be that it's probably more of a overall regime thing too. Of you saw the 8-2 start last year, so you ran it back with the 3 pillars of your franchise currently. Those 3 pillars being Daniel Jones at quarterback, Shane Steichen at head coach, and Chris Ballard, of course, at general manager. So that is usually how I look at it. But from a typical or purely on-field standpoint, yes, a lot of changes. And I'm not saying they should have kept all these players and just because they were captains and had been, long tenured guys that they should have just kept things status quo because I can hear all the YouTube commenters and our listeners saying, James, they didn't win anything, which is true. So changes always have to be made when you don't win. But to your point, have you found adequate replacements to at least maintain the level you had and clearly try to push past that?
Yeah, I mean, it's the most, if you want to look at the 22 starters, 11 offense, 11 defense, it's the most 22 starter turnover, I would say, in the Ballard era. You could maybe argue year one. That's where I think it's not, running back doesn't apply to this at all. That's where I would point to it. Marshall Pruitt going to join us here in 10. Does an outstanding job covering really all motorsports, but especially IndyCar. I think he can give us some good intel on where things are at from certainly an Alexander Rossi Pato Award standpoint heading into Friday and Carb Day, and also kind of looking back on the weekend. Kyle Collette and Jack Harvey, those qualifying cars failing inspection there. He had a great video on exactly what that issue was there. So we'll chat with him about that coming up here in a few. Do you guys see, we didn't have a really chance to get to this yesterday. Did you see the new news from Brendan Sorsby, the college football quarterback who
it's a Hail Mary to say the least.
Has the, I guess, gambling addiction is what he is saying here. James, you want to provide a little bit there on the definition of the Hail Mary for Brendan Sorsby?
So from what I understand, he is suing the NCAA to basically, in essence, keep his NCAA eligibility. And his argument is that he bet on the Indiana Hoosiers when he was barely playing back in 2022 because it made him feel more connected to his teammates and their success.
Yeah, the story says here, the bets Sorsby placed included small wagers on Indiana football between $5 and $50. The filing says to win or for teammates to exceed expectations. I assume that means betting on individual overs with that. Although he didn't play in any of these games for the Hoosiers, the filing claims he stopped betting in 2022 when he became the Hoosiers' backup quarterback. Sorsby has a quote here. In retrospect, by the end of my freshman year at Indiana, I was truly addicted to gambling. I began placing hundreds of bets on anything and everything, including non-major doubles tennis tournaments and the Major League Baseball draft.
Jokes aside, if he's really doing that, that sounds like an addiction. I don't know anybody that, even Joey Erickson, who is the diehard baseball fan that he is, who would bet on the MLB draft. Does the MLB draft even come on TV?
I feel like you have to have
On MLB Network, yeah, probably.
I'm like, the other ones, there's a
I'm
whole city that gets built, it seems like, for the NFL draft. But
I don't know what I'm more worried about, betting on the MLB draft or non-major doubles tennis tournaments.
But here's the quote I was referencing.
Rajiv Ram, hoping that he can get another title going.
I might need him for some advice when it comes to tennis so I can learn some things.
Don't take too much advice. But here's what he also said in one of his statements, Kevin. To be clear, I never placed any bets against Indiana or against any players on the team. I never used any non-public information that I knew about the team in deciding what bets to place. My bets were purely intended to make me feel more connected to the game and my teammates and to give me more of a reason to root for my teammates. Because the Indiana football team was not a very strong competitor in 2022, I lost most of the bets I placed. I can only feel connected to you, Kevin, if I bet on you.
Yeah, this is going to get real.
Come on now.
This is going to get real murky real quick because the Sorsby camp is going to play the addiction card big time. And they're going to say the NCAA is in bed with so many of these betting companies.
And they're not wrong about that, but
right.
In this instance, brother, I cannot hear you.
I know, but you know how people are. You know how the Sorsby camp's going to play it. Of addiction. You're really going to ban somebody for an addiction like that? That's the card they're going to play throughout this process.
And I just my guess on how it's going to happen. The NCAA will laugh in their face and say, yes, go get the help you need, but you'll never play for us again.
Which is,
in my opinion, that's probably still a fair punishment.
Yeah, and I think like his whole stance of like, oh, loyalty, I was rooting for my guys. The problem with betting even on these individual, let's say he was betting positively on his teammates. The one problem is if you are Josh Hoover and you're the quarterback for Indiana and they have a 12-game schedule, the one time you don't bet on the over of Josh Hoover, then all of a sudden the flag is raised of, oh, you're in these quarterback meetings. Is this the week that you're concentrating more on the run game? So you're not going to bet the over this week? Oh, it's whatever. We feel like Michigan State is super susceptible to the run. We feel like we're going to hammer, whatever, Turbo Richard and Kobe Martin and all these other guys. That's the problem you run into. It's one thing for you to, I'm only betting positively on my team. Pete Rose, I only bet on my team to win. Well, it's the one time you stop betting or you take the week off that the flags get raised of, wait a minute, you're in these offensive meetings. The game plan is not to throw the football as much as you did the week prior. Okay, what does that mean?
Yeah, I'm not buying any of that. We have Adam from Whitestown saying, did he get caught or is he proactively seeking help? I think that makes a big difference in the story on Sorsby. I don't necessarily think that it does make a big difference from the punishment standpoint of the NCAA.
He got caught, I think, to answer the question.
Yeah. I don't think he's forthcoming and saying, I need an intervention here. He got caught, but regardless of how it all kind of got revealed, Kevin, I'm firmly in the camp of if you bet on the one thing you're not supposed to bet on,
right,
addiction or not, brother, you got to face those
consequences. Because if he's 21,
right,
he can bet on the Major League Baseball draft.
Exactly.
I mean, as crazy as that sounds. Yeah. He can bet on non-major doubles tennis. It's like, dude, you just can't bet on the emblem you wear around campus
because
every
that
day.
To me basically is insider trading.
Sure.
You know more than the general public knows about what could happen. So we'll see how that plays out, but NCAA has been around for a long time. They don't lose many lawsuits, especially in cases of this nature. This is kind of unprecedented, but I think this would be a big fat L for Brendan Sorsby.
Hensley Legal Group Command Center. It happens. Hire Hensley. That's where we are. It is an overcast start to this Wednesday. A little bit chillier. Hopefully the rain finally done, but obviously all eyes point to Carb Day and what this weekend could look like weather-wise. We'll get an update coming up in the 8 o'clock hour. On the other side, Marshall Pruitt has been a newsy IMS here over the last 48, 72 hours. Much more on that with one of the best who covers the sport. Marshall Pruitt joins us next. Andy Moore Group campus out in Avon. They've got 4 brands: Volkswagen, Kia, Toyota, and how about the Nissan brand? It's one of the best in the Midwest. Alvin, the GM over there at the top Nissan store here in our state of Indiana. Again, one of the best in the entire Midwest. Inventory through the roof, Rogues, Sentras. If you look at it over there, plenty of new, plenty of used vehicles. They've been the #1 Nissan dealer in Indiana for the past 8 years. So head out to Rockville Road. It's always a place to be. Andy Moore Group campus in Avon. Again, Kia, Volkswagen, Toyota, 4 brands right on site, and the #1 Nissan dealer in our state for the past 8 years. So make sure you stop out there today. It's a great one-stop shop for a variety of brands. Andy Moore Group campus in Avon off of Rockville Road.
This is the Fan Morning Show with Kevin Bowen and James Boyd.
All right, 8 o'clock hour on a bit of an overcast start to this Wednesday. Certainly better than the seemingly arc we had to build to get around yesterday. No cars on the track today or tomorrow, media day, over there at IMS tomorrow, and fingers crossed for as clean of a car day as we can get weather-wise and certainly incident-wise. 11 to 1, that's when cars will be on the track, scheduled for Friday. James, I think you and I have admitted quite often here, our education level when it comes to motorsports and the Indy 500, not the strongest, so we rely on people like our next guest, the great Marshall Pruitt from Racer Magazine. He joins us here. We had Marshall on last year, loved our conversation with him. Saw him in the media room the other day, stopped over there. Boy, he's got quite the setup in the media room. You should see this, James. I mean, he's got all the gadgets, all the gizmos you can imagine. Asked him if he would come on again, and he's gracious with his time. So, Marshall, thank you for coming on with us again here on this Wednesday morning.
Hey, greatly appreciate the invite. Love the education part. Man, if only you guys were in and around Indianapolis, you could learn about this Indianapolis car racing a little bit. So that's just future goals. But we're just hoping to get you guys to stop eating crayons first. So after that, we'll learn a little bit about this race car stuff that goes on. Rumored in the middle of Indiana.
Very baby steps for us here. We are in the midst of
I think the red crayon tastes pretty good.
Changing diapers and crawling here. Lord knows we aren't walking. Let's start here from a what happened on Monday standpoint and fast forward to Friday at 11 o'clock. And I'll keep it as simple as I can. How screwed are Alexander Rossi and Pato O'Ward from having to go to different cars, different parts coming up for the race on Sunday?
Because of the teams they're driving for, they should not be particularly disadvantaged. The issue here that tends to really drag things down for drivers who have a significant crash prior to the race. The cars that they use for the speedway, specifically just this one race, get loved on and just improved in all these little microscopic ways for about a year. So all the biggest, best teams truly take their Indianapolis Motor Speedway car. They set one aside. We do all these other races, road courses, street courses, other ovals, but they take their speedway car specifically and say, this we're basically putting in the vault. This is the perfect, most valued car we have because aerodynamics, massive, right? 2.5 mile oval. These things fly through the air like rockets. And also from a mechanical standpoint, we want to make the transmission as smooth and just purr, no friction, everything that spins and rotates. Let's make that again as smooth, zero friction as possible to help the aerodynamics cut through the air, no mechanical drag. So this is what they focus on. They have dedicated people who do this effectively all year long. So this thing that shows up for the Indianapolis Motor Speedway guys, it's almost like the spotlight from the heavens comes down on each car and you can hear the choir going, ah, right? It's that level of protection and beauty. And so knowing all this time has been spent to make this single car perfect for each driver compared to the other races, right? Where there's a lot of bumping and banging and crashing and the cars get beaten up a bit. So you don't invest as much time perfecting the minutia. Well, these cars do receive that. So when you get this big crash, you go, oh boy, not every little seam in the bodywork is going to be perfect. So little bits of air will get trapped. And it's a little tiny amount here and tiny amount there. And add those up, and they're like little tiny parachutes slowing the car down on the straights. And some of the mechanical components, if they get beaten up and destroyed in a crash, those are going to be like little tiny parachutes. And again, it's not a huge deficit. It can only be 1 mile an hour. But if you're raging down the straightaway at 234 miles an hour, and the person next to you is only capable of doing 233, eventually you're going to get by them. So that's the concern, just to paint the bigger picture. The teams that we're talking about, Ed Carpenter, that is amazing. Ed Carpenter Racing, as good a team as you're going to find. They've been cranking away on building Alexander a backup car. They've been pouring in tons of hours to make the aerodynamic, the bodywork fit, and everything else. I can't say it's going to be exactly as good as what Alexander would have had to take starting in the middle of the front row, but I'm very confident he should have a car that he can go win the race with. Same with Pato O'Ward. That team has even more money to spend, more personnel to deploy. So long answer short, I'm not concerned about these two. The shock would be if they were actually slow in the race.
So, Marshall, to follow up to that, we had a chance to talk to Michael Shank yesterday of Meyer Shank Racing, and we were asking about the scenario and how do you prepare for it. And he mentioned that teams aren't allowed to have their backup car fully built. Can you explain maybe a little bit more about why that isn't a possibility? Myself and a lot of our listeners are like, hey, why does that not seem to be getting a green light as far as being prepared in the most possible way?
Life is made of choices, isn't it, fellas? And there's some folks who decided to make this one, and I've got a hole scratch into my head trying to figure out why the heck we've been in this place for a while with this rule. The reality is this: Chevrolet and Honda, we greatly appreciate them for being the engine providers for the IndyCar series, but they're stretched really thin. And so what you don't have, like days of old, is just a field full of engines to use at any point in time. They use seemingly just about every engine they have is in a car, or they have one. There could be a spare that they had to provide if need be. What we don't have under the way the rules have been written and the engine supply rules have been laid out is the ability for teams to all have extra engines to put into extra cars. So they're sitting there at the ready. Now, Shank's correct. But what it implies, or maybe paints the mental picture, that it's just 1,000 parts waiting to be assembled if there's a big crash. That's not the case. Teams will work on these cars, get them mostly or largely assembled, but without the engine in place, this thing, it looks a little bit more like a garage car project than something that's ready to go out to the show and really participate. So it's a pain, but it's not as huge an inconvenience as some might think. This is just a case where, unlike days of old, where you crashed, you'd have a backup car sitting there. It would usually have a letter T on it for training car, but basically a backup car ready. If someone crashed, it wasn't uncommon for the crew to have the other car fired up and warming up, assuming the driver was okay, and they'd jump right in within whatever that time frame was, half hour to an hour, back out on track in a different car. The rules the way they are, they don't allow teams to carry extra engines. It's just the motor that's in the single race car that's competing. If you have a crash or the motor blows up, whatever it might be, got to get another motor. In this case, you got to get that motor, build up the rest of the car around it. Rest of the car, though, is more or less ready to go. You just got to assemble the big Lego kit of an Indy car.
That's the voice of Marshall Pruitt. Does an outstanding job when it comes to cover an Indy car. We really appreciate his info with us here on this Wednesday morning. Marshall, when I look at this race, obviously we've mentioned the name. I mean, the Alex Palou plus 250 odds is just insane, frankly, when you think about what typically a favorite's odds look like for this race. Who are some drivers, non-Palou division, that we're not talking about enough for Sunday at 12:45 when that green flag drops?
So let me just throw this out first. If you ever want to meet the stupidest person in the world, it's the person who answers the question, who's going to win the Indy 500? It is the unanswerable question. And unlike some, and I get it, it's romantic. We obviously love the Speedway. But there's some people who are prone to saying, well, the Speedway picks its winner. Like hell it does. If that's the case, then the Long Beach Grand Prix picks its winner. And the Mid-Ohio, the race doesn't pick a winner. It's not some mythical, magical thing that selects the winner. And also, Alex Palou could be plus 12 million, and he could win the race. But good Lord, we've got 200 laps around a 2.5-mile circuit with 33 certified insane people. Anybody who thinks they know who's going to win the thing, again, seek help. I'm going to pray for you. But if you're looking for sleepers, and I don't know how much you could paint a guy who qualified on the front row as a sleeper, but David Malukas, in terms of name and profile, fan recognition, he's not a Scott Dixon type who's been around forever and just been celebrated. He's a kid. He is unlike almost any creature I have seen in IndyCar in forever. Like, this child looks like he could get lost in a field chasing butterflies. He is just this incredible. And then he gets into a race car and mollywops people. Hasn't won yet, okay? But how's this? David Malukas, brand new to Team Penske this year, replacing Indy 500 winner, two-time champion, legend, all-time pole record winner, Will Power. Expected him to be third place on the depth chart, right? After Joseph Newgarden, two-time champ, two-time Indy winner. Scott McLaughlin, Indy 500 pole sitter, many-time winner. Expected Malukas to be P3. Give him a year or two, maybe he'll move up to second best in the team. Fellas, top qualifier for Team Penske, and not by a little bit, right? So on the front row, he has been the best qualifier for Roger Penske in all races this year and has been the top finisher for Roger in half of the races held so far. That is phenomenal. So I'd say Davey Malukas, and this kid is really special on ovals. Saw that last year at the Speedway, running up front, finishing towards the front as well. Would say Santino Ferrucci is just a big old red, white, and blue party. if you're not watching that kid and thinking he's going to take that AJ Foyt Racing entry and do spectacular things, boy, I tell you are in for an education. So that's not he's not a sleeper by any means. He's just always the show. There need to be extra cameras at the Speedway just trained on him. Forget everybody else. We need permanent Santino cameras. So he for sure watching. Connor Daly, come on, hometown kid. He always puts on a crazy show. It's just everybody in the house, 300,000+ people will be praying that this is the year where everything goes fully right for him and he gets that win. After that, I mean, it's easier to name those who we know might do well, but aren't totally sure. But here's the biggest thing to watch. Thing that we had due to rain, due to Saturday's half of qualifying being completely rained out. Last weekend, everything was pushed to a single day on Sunday. Everybody got one run, right? No longer you can do multiple runs trying to improve your cars and up and up and up your speed. Everybody got a single run. Very big roll of the dice. We have some monsters in the field in the back half. So Will Power, race winner, starting 19th. Marcus Ericsson, winner, starting 17th. Ryan Hunter-Reay, winner, starting 22nd. Joseph Newgarden, starting 23rd. Kyle Kirkwood, second in the championship right now, starting 25th. Graham Rahal, starting 28th, etc., etc. This is the equivalent of like a huge school of great whites at the back of the pack. And you know they're going to be coming forward. Normally, they're all towards the front. And you get one or two towards the back who make their way forward. This is a raging ball of intensity that will be firing towards the front. We haven't seen something like this in a long time. So if you're on the fence about whether you should watch, I'm just saying this is a special event where most of the best drivers have to tear through the field to try and get to the front and hopefully taste the milk.
Boy, I feel like I'm watching an episode of Jaws here with the great whites at the back. I love the analogies
that was some theater
here.
there, baby.
Marshall Pruitt, thank you so much. We only got a minute left, but I wanted to sneak this in. I saw you chatting with Alex Palou post-poll, and I love this. Two of my favorite things in this world, beer and raising money for Riley Hospital. Could you share with our audience a little bit of, I believe, a tradition that you have here?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm a older American male, and I like myself some beer. And I figure, you know what? We always do these things where you win the race, and it's very formal. And come on, if you can't sit down and drink a beer with the person who won the pole for the Indy 500 or won the race and talk about it, like, again, just sports-loving adults, and then Al-Qaeda has won. So we've just decided, you know what? Let's do this. Let's have a beer. And it's fun. Alex, who doesn't drink much, I've gotten drunk more than once and heard some funny stories of him having to like hold on to railing, leaving the building. But do that, probably raise about $1,000 so far with he'll autograph the bottles after we're done. And it's not just Alex, done this with other drivers as well. So I don't know who we're going to do this with on Sunday, but indeed, we'll be out in the balcony, 4th floor of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway Media Center, drinking a beer and celebrating the newest winner, 110th running, Indianapolis 500.
He's going to be drinking beer and we'll be eating crayons.
Yes.
Box of 96 crowns for us, right? Coming up on Tuesday when we do our recap. Marshall, can't thank you enough, man. Your coverage is outstanding. The Marshall Pruitt podcast, at Marshall Pruitt on Twitter, Pruett. Marshall, thank you, man, and hopefully the stay in Indy treats you well the rest of this week.
Y'all the best. Appreciate you.
Racer Mag, where you can find his work. That is Marshall Pruitt right there on the Payless Liquors hotline. Mark Dykton, let's check it out.
The Morning Checkdown on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
All right, with Bet365 early payout, you win. Even if they lose, get paid out instantly when your team goes up big. Even if they blow the lead later, Bet365. Winning is everything. You got a gambling problem? Call 1-800-9-WITH-IT. Must be 21 or older and physically located in Indiana. They might as well call that the Cleveland Cavaliers bet. after last night. The Cavs led by 22 points with 7 minutes to go. And James Boyd, we got used to this last year. The Pacers did something that hadn't been done in NBA playoff history, or NBA teams are now 1-500 when down 7 points with 30 seconds to go. The stat I saw last night, teams are now 1-643 when coming back from 22 points down with 7 minutes to go. The Knicks come back and win in overtime. The Cavaliers scored 3 points in OT.
Yeah, I saw their owner, Dan Gilbert, put out a statement saying there's no good way to spin this, but it's only one game. We'll bounce back. Let's get game 2, and we'll forget about what happened in game 1. No, we won't. I won't. That was a horrendous loss, and the series is, as my sister would say, over. OVA.
It's one of those things where I wish I would have thrown like $5 down on the Knicks down 20, because I think they're plus 1,200 at that point. Could you imagine?
The Cavs always let you back into the game, no matter how big the lead is.
40 times mark you would have lost, right?
Yeah. I would have taken the one time. $5 though. Come on now.
There's a joke in there about our previous segment, but I won't probably go there on that. You could consult some Texas Tech quarterbacks to help you out on that end. Just wild. Absolutely wild. They hunted James Harden. 44-11 was the final run, I believe. Insane. Huge comeback from the Knicks there. So they're up 1-0. We'll see tonight, game 2 out west. It is OKC. It is the Spurs, 6.5-point favorite. Anything on De'Aaron Fox? I haven't checked the injury report.
He is
there.
probable, I believe, to play tonight. I'll take the official injury report, but there was multiple reports I saw yesterday, one of them from Mark Spears over at ESPN's Anscape, saying that he is likely to play. And I believe their Spurs coach was saying he'll be a game-time decision, but all signs point to him being available for game 2 tonight.
And again, that's where the the glass half full for Spurs fans after game 1. They had 21 turnovers.
11 of them from Castle.
They still have another gear or two they can get to.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's just a given the Thunder fall out of bed and make this 1-1 tonight. All right, Indiana Fever back in action, 2-2 on the season. It's a clean injury report, so good news there on the Aaliyah Boston front. And James, I guess the Portland Fire are terrible. 13.5-point underdog to the Fever tonight. Granted, the Fever lost as I think it was a 10-point favorite in the first game of the season.
Yeah, first time that these two teams will square off in over 20 years. The Portland Fire actually used to exist back in the early 2000s. They folded at first in 2002. So a bit of a full circle moment for that franchise to get rebooted and replay one of the founding members of the league in the Indiana Fever, I believe.
I think Portland needs to get their team names figured out, because they have a Portland Timbers MLS team. Now they got the Portland Fire. Those two can't combine. That's trouble there.
Yeah. And then you got the Trailblazers thrown in there.
Yeah. Pacific Northwest is going to be up in flames.
Yeah. You know what I always have to remember when I'm writing?
Part of the country.
This is me nerding out. Trailblazers, for the purpose of writing the NBA team out, has a space between Trail and Blazers. And it drives people who live there and cover the team crazy when you don't spell it correctly. I'm like, you guys could have just picked a different name and been normal.
We have a Chicago Fire, right, Mark? MLS team?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, every time I see that, I'm a little confused on that. And they got the Valkyries coming up on Friday. Boy, some of these nicknames, quite something here.
Should Fire be a nickname? Because I'm thinking to myself, when we say Portland Fire, and the Chicago Fire makes me think of like a medic unit coming to save me or put out a fire.
It's a show on NBC, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
Is it? Oh, well,
Yeah.
there you have it.
Pretty sure it is. Speaking of, right now, I guess it's a fire on the north side, Mark Dykton. Would you say that with your Cubs?
Yeah, not the good kind of dumpster fire at the moment.
They lose yesterday to the Brewers. Cardinals, they win. Reds win. Guardians win from a local standpoint there. Indians on the road again. They were postponed. They've got Toledo here this week. Mentioned it a little bit earlier. Alexander Rossi, he appeared on his own podcast yesterday. The visuals were, I would say, interesting. He had his right leg, and again, the injury specifically to the right ankle, propped up. It sounds like kind of a protective wrap, but I mean, it was quite something there all the way up to the knee area. Sounds like he'll get that off coming up today. And then again, the expectation is he will be in the car tomorrow for the final carb day practice. He also had a bandage on that left hand there. But again, you listen to Marshall Pruitt right there, James, and I think there's a little bit more optimism maybe. Obviously, these are two cars that were at the front of the field, middle of row one for Rossi, outside of row two for Pato Award. But given the resources of these teams, Pruitt sounded a little bit more optimistic about what their cars could look like. Nonetheless, I think it's vital they get quality track time on Friday just to feel comfortable, make any tweaks that are needed before Sunday.
Yes, because as Marshall pointed out, it's all about the little tiny things that could hold you back. And I think the reference he made were parachutes. You want to try to eliminate the parachutes that could hold your backup car back from being in tip-top shape.
Boy, he had some excellent analogies, did he not?
Oh, just phenomenal. Phenomenal. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, we got to make that an annual thing. It's kind of turned into an annual thing. He's a fun pre-race week guest to have on. Other news items from yesterday, IMS, Caitlin Clark will be the Grand Marshal, so she will do the command of drivers to your cars. So if you're following kind of pre-race activities, about an hour before the green flag, you get driver intros. Jordan Sparks on the national anthem. I've got right here 12:24 for that. Caitlin Clark's driver to your cars will follow. The opera singer that is Jim Cornelison with the backup singer of James Boyd singing Back Home Again in Indiana.
You know me. Back home again in Indiana.
I really feel like that's pretty close.
Can we get James like a James Brown like cape or something? So after he is done, just put him out.
I feel like it's that and Smothered Chicken that are like my two
very good
Indiana sounds.
That's the Mount Rushmore right there. I don't know if I'd add anything else. Those are excellent. Roger Penske, of course, command to start your engines, and then the green flag. Brendan Fraser, I think of him as George of the Jungle. Mark, should I be thinking of him in some other role? He's got a movie coming out, Pressure. Is that right?
Is that right?
No idea.
I believe there's always kind of a Fox-ish flair, or some sort of, back in the NBC days, you oftentimes had, a little bit more of a production movie angle or show angle to some of that. So that gets you set here leading up to, fingers crossed, weather permitting, the green flag at 12:45. A couple other items from yesterday, NFL Draft 2028 to Minneapolis, and the Super Bowl heading to Nashville in 2030. Bachelorette parties, be warned, February 23rd.
Oh, it's going to be chaotic. I can only imagine, because I feel like every year when I go to Nashville, and if you hit certain streets, it is wild no matter what time of the year it is. Hot, cold, doesn't matter. But a Super Bowl there? Let's hope the players make it to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, that's quite I'd be staying in Bowling Green if I were an NFL team. Try and hide.
I'm sure the NFL will have them very secluded from Broadway.
You can go
Who's
visit
Cody Kessler? Why are all these people wearing his jersey and Browns uniforms?
Go visit the Corvette Museum in Bowling Green. Michael Grady going to join us in an hour. He has been a busy man, national stage from an NBA playoff standpoint, a little WNBA as well. So Grady will join us here in about an hour. Fan Morning Show, Hensley Legal Group Command Center. It happens. Hire Hensley. And I Got to Know with Mark Dykton next.
I'll pull it up.
Birds emerge, but no matter how many fish in the sea, it'll be so empty without me. Now this looks like a...
This is the Fan Morning Show with Kevin Bowen and James Boyd.
A little Marshall after Marshall. Is that what you're doing there, Mark Dyke?
The Grand Marshal is Caitlin Clark. The real Marshal is Marshall Mathers.
How about that? And we just had Marshall Pruitt on as well.
Lots of tie-ins here.
Continue the theme here, and I still haven't
We
gotten
need to go to Marshall's.
I still haven't gone over Notre Dame losing to Marshall a few years back.
We can cover that in the 9
I
o'clock
remember
hour.
Stephon Gilmore's younger brother had a pick six in that game.
Trust me, I remember it quite well. I was in the hospital with Max Bowen being born. Boy, quite the memory. That's been probably how Max's life has gone here through these first 3.5 years from a behavior standpoint. Good Wednesday morning to you. Thanks for spending with us. Reminder, Michael Grady going to join us coming up at 9:30. One thing Marshall Pruitt did mention with us, he brought up the name of David Malukas. Outside of row one, Team Penske driver, young American, probably, you think about all those Americans kind of in the first 3 or 4 rows, Rossi, Ferrucci, Daly, even Ed Carpenter, like we talk about them a lot more than David Malukas. But I was reminded of this earlier in the week. I really enjoyed Jake Query had Sam Hornish Jr. on against a 20-year anniversary of that, one of the probably the most iconic finish in Indy 500 history, Hornish passing Marco Andretti for that win. We've only had 3 Americans win the race in the last 20 years.
Wow.
3 American winners in the last 20 years. Joseph Newgarden, Alexander Rossi, and Ryan Hunter-Ray. So if you are one that is, hey, we need an American winner, whatever, you want to cheer for your country, you feel like that's best for the sport, with obviously the races here in North America, that is David Malukas. Is he one that we should talk about? First year with Team Penske, and he's the fastest Penske here by a couple rows. So another storyline to keep an eye out for coming up on Sunday. You surprised by that, James, given your reaction there? Only 3 Americans last 20 years?
I am, because I want to say I might have joined you on the show when Newgarden was going back-to-back. And so in my mind, I just thought, okay, well, one, it took me probably 2 days to figure out Joseph Newgarden was not from another country. Newgarden, and the way they spell his name makes me think that he wouldn't be from America, but he is. Tennessee, I believe, right?
Yes,
So, yeah, I'm a little surprised by that, just knowing that the history of the sport and what it means here in Indianapolis in particular, and also in North America. So that is shocking to me. That's like when I hear that in the NBA, the last couple of years, the All-NBA first team hasn't had an American on or something like that. Or the last few MVPs. Like, when's the last time we had an American MVP in the NBA? I think it was James Harden back in 2018, if I'm not
Was it not
mistaken?
Durant in between now and then?
Durant had an MVP way back in 2014.
Okay.
So it's kind of like when I hear that, like, wait a second, this is a sport that's pretty American, but nevertheless, it speaks to the talent that's around the world.
I believe it's 14 countries represented in the 33 cars coming up on Sunday. And honestly, you just walk around the media center. Hell, you just walk around the track. You'll get hit with that very quickly. I mean, you'll hear the accents. You'll see the variety of, international folks that are here for covering the race, attending the race, all of it there. I think it's part of what makes it so unique and so interesting. All right, Mark Dykton.
He's got questions.
How about a game?
They've got answers.
Hey, I'm more of a cornhole man myself.
Sports, music, movies.
What?
High fashion.
That Hansel's so hot right now.
And everything in between.
You ever seen a foot with 4 toes?
It's time to get a glimpse into the mind of Mark Dykton.
Stop it, you're scaring me.
It's time for I Gotta Know.
Okay, you 2 punks, I want a good, clean fight. Let's get it on.
All right, boys. We talked about the Colts schedule last week, that it's out, the point spreads earlier. What's the Colts game that intrigues you the most? This could be a home game, an away game, the game out in London, maybe a division game. What is the game, if you circle the schedule, you're like, that's the one I want to see?
Sunday night, Kansas City for me on the road, week 2. Depending on how things go in week 1, that could be a massive game to make sure you don't fall into an 0-2 hole early in the season. And you did give Kansas City a game last year. Granted, the teams have changed a little bit roster-wise, but you gave them a game last year when Daniel Jones was playing on a broken leg. So I want to see round 2.
I'll go the week after. Shane Steichen, 0-3 at home against DeMeco Ryans in his career. I think that is an absolutely massive first divisional game of the year. They've all been close games, if you want to be, glass half full there. The other one that kind of is sneaky, Mark, who is Cincinnati? Late in the season, I think it's a week 16 game, week 15, something like that. Joe Burrow, Lou Anarumo facing his old team. Are those two wild card teams kind of going at it late in the year? That could be kind of a sneaky big game in December.
I will co-sign on the week 3 matchup against the Texans because I also don't know what C.J. Stroud is going to look like. He did not look very good last year, so I'm kind of intrigued to see what exactly C.J. Stroud and the Texans look like. And then another one for me is going to be the at Minnesota game because we all remember that horror show a few years ago where the Colts gave up that massive lead in Minnesota. Can they, exercise the demons out in Minneapolis? We'll have to see. All right, your biggest concern for the Fever so far this season. They play the Portland Fire tonight. What's your biggest concern you have so far for them?
I think it's still defensively. I know they held the Storm the other night to 78 points. Second time they've done that this season. I'm sorry. But there are still so many lapses on that end of the floor, and the Storm were without their leading scorer and really their top 2 players due to injury. So I wasn't wholly impressed with the defensive effort, the connective tissue that needs to continue to develop there.
Yeah, I would say just that's the answer I would go with, honestly. But a little bit just the front court around Aaliyah Boston. What exactly does that look like with Mo Billings, Maisha Hines-Allen? There's part of me that thinks a little bit of Obi Toppin smaller ball might be the way to go. Do you play Sophie Cunningham and Lexi Hall together at all late in games to try and maybe offset that? Obviously, you'd lose a little bit from a kind of enforcer standpoint if you want to go there, but defensively, I think is the easy and obvious answer.
Okay, are you getting over the international games in the NFL? The league said yesterday it could expand to 10 games internationally with no protections for home teams going forward in 2027. Are you kind of getting over it? Because I am, where I'm kind of like, I don't need the international game, and I maybe this is a little like American of me, but like, this is our sport. Why are we sending all our games? You wouldn't see an English Premier League game getting played over here. Why are we sending all our games over that way?
Mark hates foreigners.
Not that I hate them, but I'm like, well, what? I don't see Arsenal and Tottenham
on the border,
coming over
Mark,
this
you want
way.
to share as well?
Oh, boy.
Huh?
You got a thought on the border you want to share as well?
Oh, here we go. No, I'm just kidding.
I'll say this. I'm biased because I get to travel to the game, so it's a cool experience for me. But from a purely fan standpoint, I'm kind of with Mark on it's an American sport. It really isn't played anywhere else outside of Northwest. Shout out to the region. I mean, North America. But to me, keep it here.
Yeah, I was very, I thought it was awesome. Went overseas and saw how much they just really adored that game.
Yeah, that's a good point you make.
10 years ago. I've kind of settled on this. And Mark, you pointed out there, the NFL has changed the rule where you now cannot protect a marquee home game, which I'm surprised owners agreed to that.
I know.
You imagine Colts Cowboys all of a sudden going overseas. If you're the Colts, you're like, how much money did we just lose in tickets right there with all those Cowboys fans coming to Lucas Oil Stadium? I think the sweet spot is 8 games a year. They've upped it to 10. My thought with 8 has been this. You play overseas every 2 years. You give up a home game every 4.
And you just rotate.
Okay. I can get behind that.
I think that would have been the sweet spot for me, but now this is new. Now they're upping it to 10 a year, and it's like the college football playoff. We're just going to keep on expanding the damn thing, and no protections over your home games. What if they took a marquee home divisional game? You imagine? Colts Texans, something like that. Colts Jags.
Boy. Yeah.
Going overseas. Like, where does this stop?
Look at in the start of the season. Rams Niners is in Australia.
Exactly. It's a great point. So I have no issue with playing international games, but I would like to see it kind of capped at 8 a year. You give up a home game every 4th year.
Sadly, we're going to go to one every week. That's what's going to end up happening.
The Jaguars are going to be based in London by the
now,
end
from
of
a
this
viewing
decade.
standpoint, you guys really don't like. I love a 9:30 football game. How great! I mean, like,
I think it's more so from an attendance standpoint.
yeah, I mean, like if I was a season ticket member, I get it. But from an entertainment, like viewing standpoint, why do I need a 7th 1 o'clock game stateside when I can get a 9:30 window there? That's perfect.
Well, some people go to church. Unlike you,
church
you
ain't
sinner.
3 hours. If church is 3 hours, you got to get out of there.
I'm just saying, some of them would like to go to church and not miss any of the game. You sinner.
That's what the phone is for.
Jeez.
Yes, Father, I'm listening.
When I get to the pearly gates, I'll try to vouch for you, Kevin, but you can't be saying this kind of things on the airwaves.
Our last one, I sent you guys these pictures. Okay. We talked about the beer skate with the Carolina Hurricanes. Then the Buffalo Sabres have a beer saber, which is like a sword-shaped beer sword. And now the Indy 500's unleashing the oil can, which you can buy. I'm assuming it's mostly for lemonade, but you could probably put an adult pop in there if you want to. Which of the three would you rather have?
Lemonade? What the hell? What are you saying? No way. That's for lemonade?
What would you rather have? The beer skate, the beer saber, or the oil can?
Oh, that oil can looks like I need 2 hands and like I need to grip that. I mean,
It's a
look at
beer
that
keg.
thing.
It looks
Joy
like.
Erickson's jug of beer
It
that I
is.
referenced.
Oh my gosh. You can't palm that with one hand there.
So besides me slandering Joel, again, he did not have a jug of beer when we were in Tennessee. I do think the oil can looks pretty sick. And being biased to Indiana, that's a cool souvenir, right?
You imagine a Long Island iced tea and that thing, you'd be laying in the mountains somewhere.
Did I tell you guys how my dad didn't know that Long Island iced teas had alcohol in them?
Oh, that's a fun
That was a rough
discovery.
night for him.
Well, that's
My mom.
be like when Ronda Rousey gets a hold of him. I mean, Mark, for that oil can, you're going to need a separate seat. You're going to need to buy another seat. I mean, that thing ain't fitting in any cup holder.
Well, does it just look that big because of the picture?
I don't know. I would go.
Size does matter when you put it at certain angles. So, I mean, do with that information what you will.
I'm getting clips.
I've had the affinity for the beer skate for a long time. So I'm going to have to stick with my first love.
The
there.
Saber doesn't seem as functional as the others.
The Saber is giving me beer bat vibes where I'm like, we've already seen that. Like, yes, there's a handle, but I'm like, I also don't know how efficient
The
that
Saber
is.
could get dangerous out on the concourse if the game goes wrong.
On guard!
You know?
Walk the plank.
All of a sudden we have a fencing match on, in the Bud Light zone inside of Lucas
The
Oil
Game
Stadium.
of Thrones scene.
Give me the oil can. I want the oil can.
Now, what do we talk about? Baby Borg, right? Didn't we talk about that?
Yeah.
Drinking out of the baby Borg.
That would look pretty cool. With a
we
pagoda.
we got to throw these to Doug Bowles on Friday. I'm sure he's going to love that. He's worried about the weather, and we're asking him about what are they putting beer in.
Well,
You
one
get
of the
my
things we
hands on one
can't
of those oil
control. We
cans.
can control the beer. We can't control the weather.
Preach. Thank you for that.
All right, that's it.
That is Mark Dykton. We've got our Indy 500 draft. We still got to get to Michael Grady coming up in 45. Fan Morning Show, Hensley Legal Group Command Center. It happens. Hire Hensley. We grow hair, Indy, the gold standard for hair restoration, and it is up there on the northwest side. Speaking of the northwest, that would be Pyramids building number 2 at the Pyramids there. Beautiful office. Most importantly, they've got info for you. It's a free evaluation. It can be a private evaluation. It can be a virtual evaluation. I think Darren Andrews and his staff are excellent. I think you'll enjoy visiting their office, but I understand if it's something you want to do a little bit more virtual or private. And again, they provide that for you, but get the info. Do not just click on the Instagram ad and out of state, out of country. No. We have the best right here in our own backyard. They are the gold standard for hair restoration. It's We Grow Hair Indy. WeGrowHairIndy.com if you want to start there. And then again, free evaluation, private evaluation, virtual evaluation, all of that is available to you via We Grow Hair Indy. The gold standard for hair restoration, We Grow Hair Indy.
This is the Fan Morning Show with Kevin Bowen and James Boyd.
Michael Grady going to join us at, is that 9:30, Mark?
9:30, correct.
MG. Bria Goss coming up in about 10 minutes. Fever back in action tonight. Our snake draft round 2. Mark Dykton, what do you think right now?
I say yes. So, James had the number 1 overall pick. We were doing snake draft. He took Alex Plo. Kevin went Pato Award. And I took Connor Daly. So, because of the snake draft, that means I'm up in round 2. Boys, I'm going to go Felix Rosenquist with mine. Leading row 2. He's had a couple of top 10 finishes the last few years. I'm going to go with him.
His owner sounded pretty confident yesterday, did he not?
He did.
Boy, Michael Shank was all about that. Ooh, boy. I think Marshall Pruitt just talked me into him. I'm going to go old Davey Malukas here.
Ooh,
the Penske car outside of row 1. He was up there last year with a very different team. So I'm going to go David Malukas here in round 2.
That means it's back to James to round out round 2 of 4.
I'm going to roll with Scott McLaughlin.
Okay.
He can come back from anything. He's a Knicks fan. So apparently, if you root for that team, you can't lose. So I'm rolling with him.
So there you go. So James has Pelot, McLaughlin. Kevin's got Pato Award, Malukas. I've got Connor Daly and Felix Rosenquist. So round 3 tomorrow, we'll have James starting it off.
Boys, I'm feeling good. You're going down.
Again, this is for not necessarily winner, but top whoever finishes the top total. That's how we're doing it.
Yeah, the lowest total.
Total.
Yeah.
So the guys I
finishing
picked are going to
position.
get first and second. And the third guy I pick is going to be third. Simple.
So, yes, lowest total there. Are we doing a drawing here at work, Mark? I know the great John Griffin hung it up. He was usually the one that spearheaded
Yeah, we
it.
did. I have not seen one, so I'm not sure if that's still a thing or not, or if it went the way of Griff.
And it was first out usually got something, right?
Something,
Money back, or maybe
and
it was
laps
even...
led, I thought, was how it also worked, too. I'm not sure.
Yeah, a couple of different storylines. Again, nothing on the track today, nothing tomorrow. Media day is kind of the big thing tomorrow over there. And then carb day weather. Fingers crossed for that. Again, I think the thought was that potentially the morning could be a little bit better. We'll see the chances of rain. And then Sunday, I think I shrug the shoulders right now. It still looks like there is a chance potentially, and we'll probably have to have somebody weather-related join us coming up Friday for carb day. And, Saturday, I know it's a pretty fun day. You got the parade starting just south of us right here as we are at, 10th and Meridian, 11th and Meridian up here. So that obviously will be something to keep an eye on as well. Coming up in about 5 minutes, Bria Goss, Fever in action. They are a big, big favorite. James, you said you shadowed with her yesterday. A great Indiana high school basketball player, Bria Goss, and she's got a thought maybe on the shot clock?
She does have a thought on the shot clock, and I always have to remind her she can share those thoughts because she pretends like she wasn't one of the best basketball players in state history, but...
Miss basketball.
Yeah. Bria, we ain't falling for that. You were a bucket back in those days.
She joins us next here. It is the Fan Morning Show, 9 o'clock hour, Hensley Legal Group Command Center. It happens. Hire Hensley.
This is the Fan Morning Show with Kevin Bowen and James Boyd.
Game 3 of a 4-game homestand tonight. It is the Fever and the Fire. That is a 7 o'clock tip. That's the expansion team from Portland. Big old favorite, the Fever, in this one. They've got the Valkyries coming up on Friday. And then, kind of odd, they really don't have a whole lot of games there in about a 10 to 14-day period. They'll go back out west for a 2-gamer, but that's really it. I think part of that is what allows somebody like Caitlin Clark to be the Grand Marshal coming up Sunday of the Indianapolis 500. Let's head to the Payless Liquors hotline right now. You'll hear her over on our sister station tonight. That would be WIBC. Our pregame coverage begins at 6:30. John Nolan and Bria Goss at 7 o'clock. And honestly, Bria Goss is probably just happy today that she doesn't have to hear James Boyd asking her about the shot clock in high school.
Come on now.
Hey, it's so funny. We were just talking about that. That's hilarious. But yeah.
That was enough of practice yesterday. Bria's trying to focus on practice. How's Aaliyah Boston looking? She's going to be back healthy. And James Boyd's asking her about the shot
This
clock.
is how you know he ain't a real journalist, Bria, because KB didn't ask for the context. We were waiting to be let into practice, killing time. So I figured, hey, let's ask about the shot clock. So,
it was valid. It was valid. And it was hilarious because we saw a lot of points of views in our own eye. And two different experiences, but two very same conclusions to that.
Okay. And do you want to share a little bit more on your conclusion? Bria Goss, who, by the way, never wants to mention how great of a high school basketball player she was, or a basketball player in general, but I will do so for her. But Bria, on behalf of being an Indiana basketball legend, can you weigh in on the high school shot clock debate?
Okay. Like I was saying yesterday, I think it's beneficial to our game. I think it's one of those things that you can continue to grow, and they can continue, these high school athletes can continue to be more like college athletes, one, by extending or having a shot clock, making defense a priority, but also not having defense for 2 and 3 minutes at a time. Nobody wants to do that. Or, something as small as, enlarging the court, which we have seen in other states, especially in the Midwest. So I don't think it hurts the game. I think it just raises your level of play. And it's better for the fans, too. There's been too many games where I go to high school games where they're just putting it the whole fourth quarter. So that's my plea, and hopefully this gets to the people that it can get to so they can make that change.
I guess, Bria, now that we're kind of going down this rabbit hole, another difference collegiately from the women's game to the men's game is, you see the men's game halves, and the women's game you see quarters. I'm trying to think, when you played college basketball, were you guys doing quarters yet, or were you still with halves?
Yeah, so my senior year, they changed the quarters. Okay. And honestly, I thought the men's side was, 2 or 3 years out from doing that. And here they are, still in half. And I've talked to a couple of my friends about the same thing. We want them to go to quarters too. We do, because I think it just brings a different level to the game. They're the only ones in the world that go half in college basketball. So it's time to change.
So pivoting to your current basketball days as one of the radio voices for the Fever, a lot of conversation this year about Caitlin Clark coming back from the injuries and kind of hitting the ground with a full body of health. And I feel like despite the early shooting slump, Bria, we've kind of overlooked the fact that Caitlin's currently averaging 24, 9, and 5. So what are your early thoughts on what she's contributed to this team and kind of refinding her form as her health continues to pick up?
Now, she looks good. She looks really good. One of those things where I don't want to say it's to be expected. She had that USA run where she did phenomenal there, got MVP there, came back for training camp, looked solid as can be. And then now in the game, like you said, even with the shooting woes, she was still finding ways to score. So I thought that was really impressive too. She's continuing to grow her game. She's continued to, elevate the players around her. And then with her stat line, which is being phenomenal, it's going to be really scary here in a month or two when this team can get, on the same page chemistry-wise, and then they can all, do the exact same thing. So with Caitlin doing what she's doing, and you factor in, it's going to be a dangerous team. I'm excited for her.
Shout out to Ben Davis, the pride of Ben Davis, Bria Goss. She's with us here on the Payless Liquors hotline again. Her and John Nolan coming up tonight. Our pregame coverage 6:30 over on WIBC. The tip 7 o'clock. It'll be a 7:30 tip Friday night with the Valkyries. Bria, we were talking earlier about the Fever and the defensive questions. Specifically, what element do you see defensively that needs the most growth? On-ball defense, rebounding, paint presence. Yeah, how do you kind of view it defensively with this team?
Yeah. So one, and they used to tell me this all the time in college, was, turn your brain off, right? There's so many defensive schemes and scouting and game plans that you have to learn to continue to play basketball. And so I think there's just a little bit too much overthinking on the defensive side of where you're supposed to be and who's supposed to be where. Instead, if you talk about from the very beginning and that initial positioning, just know that not only is it going to be hard for my player to score, it's going to be hard for my player to get the ball. You know what I mean? So that change of, again, just trying to get everybody on the same page. I think Mike Hines Allen said it best yesterday. There's some actions that have different names in other cities that she played for. And so those are the types of things. Once all that, clears the air, I think they'll be fine. But if they could just start taking steps to the initial positioning and how they start guarding the ball, I think it's going to be a lot better, especially on that downhill attack.
Again, we're talking to Bria Goss, one of the radio voices of the Fever, 2011 Indiana Miss Basketball. Bria, when I look, you always laugh, but I'm thinking, hey, the resume is a resume. I'm just being a factual journalist here. But
I know.
In all seriousness, when you look at this Fever roster, obviously a big part of that would be Kelsey Mitchell as well. And not necessarily this season, but just overall, as someone who, was a part of that Fever franchise and knows the WNBA through and through, how much respect have you had for the way she's gone about her business and has helped elevate this franchise now? Because I don't think they would have this success. Yes, Caitlin's been important, Aaliyah's been important, but without that holdover from kind of the old regime.
Man, a dog. A flat-out dog. And even when she came into the league, 9 years ago, she still had that bouncy, I'm going to put you on the blender type of swag that she got. And so now it's an even better level of play. She's around better players. She's around a better coaching staff. And so what she did last year is typically what I've seen her do for years on end, but it's so good to see that other people are giving her the recognition, that she so deserves. She is a player that is competitive and wants to win, doesn't really care about the credit, right? She doesn't care about who does what. It's about how many points we have at the end of the game versus the other team. And because of that, it's been able to fuel her to, by any means necessary, have that, get that win. I mean, literally she came from the trenches. Literally has been through so much, and so to see her shine, it's been fun to watch. And again, just like Caitlin, as soon as everyone can get on the same page, it's going to even raise the level of her individual play as well. So it's going to be fun to watch.
Again, it is Fever, it is Fire, it is tonight, 7 o'clock, and you can hear Bria Goss and John Nolan tip time at 7, pregame coverage, though, 6:30 over on WIBC. Bria, thank you so much. Have enjoyed listening this season, and we'll certainly be tuning in tonight.
Yeah, thanks so much, and thanks for putting me on the spot again for the shot clock. I appreciate that.
It's a hot button topic, to say the least, and Bria Goss there. The quarter half debate, we don't usually hear much of that debate, but Bria brings up there, when you think about it, men's college basketball. Is that it from a half standpoint?
Yeah, I think they're being archaic with that. I love
why don't we talk about it? I feel like it's not really a discussed topic.
That is a good point. Well, now I'll talk about it. I'll get on the soapbox and say we should have quarters in men's basketball. I think it adds a little bit more of like the end of game type of scenarios. And yeah, it makes more sense to be broken up that way.
It was interesting trying to explain that to my daughters during March Madness because they were like, well, there's only a second quarter. How come the second quarter is 20 minutes? I'm like, no, this is the second half. And then we went to the Fever game, and they're like, wait, why is this not halves? Why is this quarters? And so they were all confused as to why it's so different.
Well, and I think, too, Mark, a thing that you hear a lot of coaches frustrated with halves is when you get the teams that get into the bonus with like 12 minutes to go in a half, and then it's just a foul game pretty much the rest of the half. Whereas in quarters, typically the bonus is 5 fouls, I think as it is in the NBA. That's maybe a little bit different from a foul standpoint. You don't necessarily get into that aspect of the game. So, yeah. What did Bria say? Her senior year at Kentucky, that's when they changed it?
Yes.
So 2011 high school grad. So what, 2015, right around there is when they changed that. So boy, it's been 10 years.
It doesn't seem like it's been that long, but
no.
Yeah, that's a good point that she makes. And again, shout out to Bria Goss, 2011 Miss Basketball, Ben Davis giant, not just an alum there, but literal giant in one of the sports that is loved around this state.
A little Ben Davis to Warren Central rivalry we'll have here. Michael Grady going to join us coming up at 9:30. Very much looking forward to catching up with MG. He has been a big-time voice from an NBA playoff standpoint, and now I think shifting gears a lot to the WNBA. We will be out there for Carb Day, of course, coming up on Friday. And did I hear correctly that JMV and Hammer and Nigel are right after us, Mark Dykton? 10 a.m.?
Yeah, they're doing like a special edition of shows. Tandem show.
Yeah.
Well, that's quite the duo trio right there.
You want to talk about oil cans getting drank out of?
And then John's got to get
those three.
And then they both have to get back on air for their 3 o'clock shows?
That could be fascinating.
Boy, we might need to pray the rosary. Speaking of church earlier, if they're going to make it through 3 to 6 o'clock, Hammer and Nigel 3 to 7, right?
They might be crowd surfing through the snake pit at that point.
JMV told me to stop by after on Friday, so
you might need to do the show from 5 to 6.
We'll see, but I'll certainly stick around. And if you are intending to go to Carb Day, please stop by and come visit all of us at the Fan.
James is the backup for JMV and for back home again in Indiana. He's backing up everybody.
The more you can do, right?
Pace car backup as well.
Hey, man, you try to keep a job in this world, you want to try to be multifaceted.
Is the Alexander Rossi's backup in case something goes wrong?
No, I don't know about that. But I will say, in all seriousness, looking at that foot and what the wrap on his hand, I know these guys are tough and they will downplay. Not a big deal. He's going to be out of the wrap today. But I saw that, and I was thinking, athletes are crazy. That was my first thought in my head was, that doesn't look like a guy who should be driving or moving or doing anything, and he's going to be going 200-plus miles an hour in a few days.
That's his right foot. So, like, the right foot in driving is doing a lot. I'm like, how's that club of a foot going to fit in the car?
Well, yeah, I mean, obviously the wrap will be off. But I mean, to your point, Mark, I thought Kevin Lee brought up something interesting yesterday of like, 20, 30 years ago, certainly longer than that, the left finger injury, a finger injury on your left hand wouldn't have been a big deal at all. Nothing burger, But now, with how many controls you have on your steering wheel, and Kevin Lee brought up, now does Ed Carpenter Racing for the 20 car, do they reconfigure anything? So, for example, do you have more of the right side of the steering wheel, have more of the buttons that are necessary for him to use? Because, I mean, that wrap was not a nothing wrap on the left hand either.
No.
I mean, it's not like he's got a little finger splint on one of them there. That was an actual wrap. So, boy, I think these are all questions for Friday. And that's what makes the Mother Nature element. Yes, we want the party. We all want people there. We'll be there 7 to 10 a.m. Gates are going to open up at 8 o'clock. Pagoda Plaza, as James says. We can't wait for that. But 11 o'clock to 1 o'clock is massive for Alexander Rossi in that backup car. It's massive for Pato Award. Even Connor Daly mentioned he got caught up in some debris with that accident. So where is he at come Friday? And then you've got the pit stop competition after that. So, man, because there's the debate if Mother Nature does not cooperate on Friday, which, again, some of the rain, it sounds like, could be a little bit later. Fingers crossed for that. Does Rossi and or Pato, if they have a backup car, do they get the opportunity to even run like an install lap?
There's also chance of thunderstorms too, which that means lightning in the area possibly. That you're not getting out there.
Right. So these are huge storylines for Sunday. I was listening to Doug Bowles yesterday, and Mark will have him again Carb Day.
That's the plan. Yep.
Now we got Ed Carpenter, 8 o'clock Carb Day. He will certainly be a man that can give us some more intel on all of this. But Doug Bowles said the Air Titans, they will borrow again from NASCAR, which they had to use these, of course, last year. And with the drying equipment IMS has, the Air Titan equipment, they can dry the track in 57 minutes. So hopefully that's not a number we need to worry about Friday or Sunday, but 57 minutes. They're able to get that thing dry. I think typically it's about 2 hours. So if you need it, if there's any rain in the forecast, that's what you've got there.
I would like to see one of those video montages of how that gets done, because that sounds like peak efficiency.
Oh, and those are some crazy-looking vehicles.
Yeah.
They get out there. One thing, too, and again, maybe this is more of an Ed Carpenter question on Friday, and I get that he's worried about his own car. But, like, Rossi's got an ego. Rossi's got a bit of an edge to him. Rossi wants to be in that car. No questions asked. And, you would think 90-some% of athletes would obviously want to still compete. But is there anything that they see Friday that they say to him, dude, you can't be in the car?
Yeah.
Like, is there anything from an on-track, him trying to handle all the controls that are in the car? Is there anything that they witness as a team that says, we've got to protect you? I think that is a interesting storyline.
Well, I'm thinking, if they're changing the controls on the steering wheel, that's a big adjustment for him as well. Because if you're used to one setup, if all of a sudden you go to a different completely setup, you're like, oh, wait, more of this stuff's on my right side? Oh, wait, I forgot about that. Or I have to adjust myself. That's a huge adjustment period in itself. And then new vehicle, all the injuries he's dealing with, there's a lot riding on Friday.
And, James, we do this in the NFL a lot. Hey, do you need to protect the player? Do you need to protect the driver?
Yeah. It's a good question, but boy, that would raise some hell.
But that's reality, is it not? I mean, that's something that you have to, I think, consider.
I agree.
You are some of these. I mean, we're talking about a sport. The NFL, you obviously can suffer a major injury. I'd argue in racing, you can suffer
a worse injury.
I hate to say it, but life. I mean, that's real. It can be huge. So, yeah, this is.
Is there a certain clearance you have to get? How do they kind of go about?
Well, I mean, I think from
injuries?
a concussion standpoint, yeah. I mean, we saw Simon Pagenaud, former 500 winner, suffer a concussion a couple of years ago. He's never been in a car since. So, there is obviously that aspect, but I don't know. Obviously, I don't know what your medical team looks like. I mean, obviously, you have, what's her name? Dr. Julia, I forget her last name, the medical doctor over there for IndyCar. But I don't, how do you deem that? What are your finger exercises? What are your ankle exercises? Yeah, I don't know the answer to that, but I'm always a fan of give me more storylines for a 500. I like when Fernando Alonso tried it. I liked when Kyle Larson tried it. To me, bump day, that intrigues me. This is not, I mean, it adds a storyline. There's no questions asked. It's not necessarily the ideal storyline you want, and obviously you want safety and health to be paramount for all of these drivers, but again, you're talking about middle row 1, Alexander Rossi, outside of row 2, Pato O'Ward. These are not two, podunk drivers in the back of the field making their first Indy 500 starts.
I'm laughing at this text from one of our listeners. He goes, I thought you were interviewing Bill Walton when we had Pruitt on. And shout out to Marshall Pruitt. That man can make you enjoy a story. I liked Bill Walton's broadcast, for the record. Late night, hoops, give me Bill Walton.
I thought Marshall Pruitt was great earlier.
He was. I'm serious.
Imagine Bill Walton doing an IMS hit somewhere.
I'm telling you, it would be fantastic.
James, the snake pit is looking beautiful.
He'd be perfect
today
for a rain delay. Perfect for a rain delay.
I was going to add that caveat in. He's perfect as long as the stakes aren't too high. I don't know if I want Bill Walton, or would have wanted Bill Walton. Shout out to the legend and rest in peace to him. Calling the final lap of the 500.
Yeah, I'd rather have Mark Janes in my ears here. Greg and Nick both asking. I think it's good points they bring up. Can't Rossi get into some sort of simulator here? Yeah, but I assume that is part of these couple days. But also, isn't there a part of the rehab? You need to rest for X amount of hours. Where's that aspect of it? Hey, physically, we don't want you to, get into any sort of simulator situation because you need to rest the ankle or you need to rest the finger. These are all questions that I guess Rossi will continue to be asked coming up tomorrow as they have a media day there. But yeah, I think those are good points that Greg and Nick bring up on the text line. Michael Grady in 10, Mark Dykton, let's check it down.
The Morning Checkdown on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
Bet365, early payout, you win. Even if they lose, get paid out instantly when your team goes up big, even if they blow the lead later. Bet365, winning is everything. Got a gambling problem? Call 1-800-9. It must be 21 or older and physically located in Indiana. They might as well call that the Cleveland Cavaliers bet from last night. A 22-point lead with 7 minutes to go. Honestly, that's one of those breaking points, in the next minute or two, if that lead stretches to 27, 28, both teams probably empty the bench there.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, flip of a switch, a hunting of James Harden time and time again. The Knicks execute one of the biggest comebacks we've ever seen, their biggest comeback in playoff franchise history. They win in overtime, 44-11, James. That was the run the rest of the way.
Just a pathetic meltdown by the Cavaliers. Series over. Congrats to the New York Knicks going to the finals for the first time since 99.
You trust the Knicks that much?
Absolutely. Because I feel like when...
It's also how little I trust the Cavs, too.
Yeah, that's probably more of it, Mark. But I think when
Cavs
you have...
won some big games last series.
I don't want to hear it. I am not hitching my
Have you seen the Knicks lose home games?
Have you seen
every
James
other
Harden
game?
in the playoffs? Who do you trust more? I'm serious. Who do you trust more, Jalen Brunson or James Harden?
I think acting like the Knicks are just going to foregone conclusion sweep this series is a little
Well, I'm not saying they're going to sweep them, but it's over. They've won the series. Because now, in all seriousness, when you blow a game like that, Kevin, I really believe mentally you have to go out there and win 5 games. You blew one.
Totally.
I don't believe in the whole, it's just 1-0. No, that's a different 1-0 hole right there.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that, but I think acting like the Knicks are just going to walk over the Cavs
Oh, I think they're going to smack them. 5
I think
games.
it's a little premature for the Knicks.
5 games. Congrats to the Knicks.
So you've adjusted from 6 to 5.
5, because you blew the game you're supposed to win.
But were they supposed to win? It was a road game.
You're up 22 in the fourth quarter. Yes, you're supposed to win it.
They still got 3 more chances.
Don't care. It's OVA.
What's the Knicks record at home here in these playoffs?
It will be undefeated against the Cavs.
They have one of the worst home records on their home floor of any playoff team over the last couple of years.
They look pretty good the last 2 rounds.
Tonight, Western Conference Finals, it'll be Thunder and Spurs, 6.5-point favorite. The Thunder in this one does sound like De'Aaron Fox should be back in the lineup for this one. Again, the Spurs, they won game 1 on the road, yet had 21 turnovers in that game. The Thunder are still a favorite in this series. Should they be the favorite?
How do you feel about it?
I think they still should be the favorite.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do.
Reigning champs, league MVP.
But, I mean, to your point, if game 1s matter this much and stealing game 1, I don't disagree with that total thought there, but it is interesting that the Spurs take game 1 on the road, and yet they are still the underdog.
And they're getting De'Aaron Fox back. I could probably agree with that, though, because OKC's just been so good, and they've been really good at bouncing back the last 2 years, so we'll see.
13.5-point favorite, the Fever tonight. We just talked with Bria Goss about that. Aaliyah Boston off the injury report, so good news on that front. Major League Baseball, the Cubs now stink, which is music to my ears. Jason Kidd has been fired as the head coach of the Mavericks, and over at IMS, again, no cars on the track, but Caitlin Clark will be the grand marshal. That means she will say drivers to your cars. That will be the command that she will give coming up on Sunday. Of course, Roger Penske is the drivers start your engines. And in NFL news, their league spring meetings in Orlando. Nashville would be getting the 2030 Super Bowl. Minneapolis, the 2028 NFL draft. So a couple news items there from the NFL. All right, coming up in a few, Michael Grady, obviously one of our favorites. He has been a popular man here early in the playoffs, doing a whole lot of WNBA. The pride of Warren Central, the pride of these airwaves. Michael Grady going to join us next.
We are tracking a cloudy and cooler day ahead. There's a chance for lingering showers, especially areas southeast of Indianapolis. We'll see an afternoon high near 64 degrees. Mostly cloudy tonight and cooler with lows in the upper 40s. I'm Fox 59 meteorologist Amber Hardwick for The Fan.
Fan Morning Show with Kevin Bowen and James Boyd.
Oh, man, we don't want him hanging up, Mark Dykton.
I mean, he has to know at this point. It's got to come. Like, welcome back to the Indy airwaves. I got to play Return of the Mac.
Michael Grady, gracious with his time. He's been a busy man with hoops, a lot of NBA playoff stuff, shifting gears WNBA-wise. I think he's got the next Fever opponent coming up tomorrow night. The Valkyries will be on a back-to-back Thursday and then Friday. And I guess fitting here with 500 week here that Michael Grady returns to 107.5 The Fan. Joining us right now, we head to the Payless Liquors hotline. MG, thank you for the time, man. How you doing?
Yeah, I wish you guys were gracious with the intro music. Whoever said, never gets old, they were lying. Yeah. Return of the Mac. No, great to be on with you guys, as always.
Well, thank you very much. Yeah, you can blame Mark Dykton for all of that. Great work early on, playoff-wise. Will things start to shift here, WNBA-centric, for the next few months for you?
Yeah, that's still all hoops. And so WNBA is in a good place. Obviously, NBA basketball still getting a lot of attention. Conference finals off to a great start. But yeah, we're already in WNBA time. So that'll be have a lot of my attention for most of the summer.
Grady, when you look at the rise of the WNBA, and obviously we kind of feel it firsthand here with the Fever, what's it been like from your perspective to get more immersed in the league? I know you were around, for the 2012 championship, but just to continue to see it grow and grow with it.
Yeah, I think the big thing that stands out to me is just I know they're coming off the CBA and they're getting paid a much more fair amount than what they've been given in the past. But I just think it's to see the personality development. I just think that these ladies are just have every opportunity to show who they are and benefit monetarily off of that. And I just think that is aided in the explosion. We're getting to see and understand these women on a different level that we didn't get to real generation. And so and they get to truly be themselves. And so I really enjoy seeing that, seeing the league come into its own, but seeing the players individually come into their own. And obviously, with every passing generation, there's going to be generational players. We're not going to quite see another player like Tamika Catchings, but each generation you should see the skill improve and go to another level, the ball handling, the shooting ability, all those kinds of things. And so we've seen that evolve. Evolve over time as well. So it's in a really good place. I love that they're celebrating 30 years of WNBA basketball this season because it creates a great opportunity to show respect and show love to the women who laid down the groundwork for the young ladies who are in the league and performing right now.
Again, that's the voice that needs no introduction. Michael Grady is with us here. He's got Liberty and Valkyries coming up tomorrow night, 8 o'clock over on Amazon Prime. MG, if we could go to the Western Conference Finals here for just a second. Obviously, that primarily gets a lot of eyes from you here throughout the regular season. I can't recall last time I have looked forward to a series more. Game one certainly lived up to it. What are your thoughts, maybe kind of big picture NBA-wise, and what we're viewing here with Thunder and Spurs?
You're seeing two teams that, if they stay healthy, should dominate the conference for a very long time. And there's always going to be nuance. Unfortunately, we hate injuries, and so things like that will come into play and could shake it up. And it was a few years ago that people thought that the Denver Nuggets they would dominate the Western Conference for quite some time, and we see what's happened with Denver. But what's unique about both San Antonio and OKC, OKC winning the championship a season ago was one of the youngest squads ever assembled to go on to win a championship. They really only had one collective playoff run together where they lost to the Dallas Mavericks the previous season and then came back the next year and then won it all. And so for a group to be that young, to be that disciplined, to be that poised, have an MVP and go on and pretty much annihilate everybody. And then I know this is a sore spot. Who knows what could have happened in that final game against Indiana with the Achilles injury to Tyrese Halliburton. But still, to win that championship and then come back this season and then face a San Antonio squad that had never been on a collective playoff run together. I think that's what's unique about it, because these teams are getting early lessons in what it means to go on deep postseason runs. And that's one thing that young guys don't get. Young, super talented teams, they don't get those deep postseason runs early in their career. It takes time. There's a process. And Wemby, Stephon Castle, Dylan Harper, they're getting all these experiences early with raw, ridiculous talent. And so it's just, again, if these two teams stay healthy, they're going to be a problem in the Western Conference, and they're going to meet quite a bit. And that's just, I think if you're a basketball fan, that's great. If you're a fan of another team in the Western Conference, it may not be so great.
MG with us, that of course is Michael Grady, and again, he's got a little WNBA action tomorrow night. Valkyries, Liberty, and the Fever will play the Valkyries coming up Friday. It'll be a back-to-back for Golden State. You brought up the Pacers. Obviously, the Ivica Zubac trade was quite the news item there around the deadline. How do you kind of view that fit and the Pacers hierarchy in the Eastern Conference heading into next year?
There's no real great words of to share after the trade. It's just disappointing the way the ping pong balls fell. Right, it's just the worst possible scenario in that sequence. Still, you have a talented player in Ivica Zubac. It's going to be really exciting to get Tyrese Halliburton back. You still have one of the best coaches in the game in Rick Carlisle, and a number of complementary pieces. But given the intent of the trade and what the hope was for, and after what the team experienced after a long 82-game season, it was just the worst possible scenario. So from that standpoint, it really hurts. Still a lot of talent, and still a lot of optimism for the upcoming season. But that one is going to take a while to get the bad taste of that out of your mouth. So still excited to see this team come back and compete next season. The East is still in a weird place. I don't think anybody predicted Detroit to get the number one seed. I don't think anyone predicted Cleveland to get to the Eastern Conference finals. I think people had more expectations for Orlando, and they fell short. They'll have a new head coach next season. Toronto looked pretty good and forced Cleveland into 7 games. There's just so much going on. And of course you have the Knicks, who, are right there on the cusp of doing something special. And last night was unreal. So, the East is still very much, in my opinion, in flux. And Indiana, with the magic of Halliburton, the depth, the coaching, will still have an opportunity to make some noise. But that whole trade scenario still stings.
Again, that's the voice of Michael Grady. One, if you're a longtime listener, should be very familiar to you.
AKA old.
I was trying to be nice there, but
that's all right. That's all right.
Grady, to kind of piggyback off of the thoughts on the ping pong balls, I was thinking to myself, and I made the joke here on these airways multiple times, that the basketball guys do not know where the Steve Alford N is, because if they did, there might have been a little more magic there with that side of it. But I guess if there's a silver lining, at least you don't have to deal with that guy out west that is Wemby. You're in the Eastern Conference. So I want to go back to that player, that performance we saw the other night. You've been around the game for a long time. What are we witnessing from your perspective with a talent like that?
Yeah, I see it. You see it in Halliburton. Yeah, everybody saw it in that postseason run a year ago. During my time where I was the primary voice in Minnesota, I saw it night in and night out with Anthony Edwards. And you're seeing it with Victor Wembanyama. There are a handful of guys who are competitive as hell. They have raw talent, and they have the work ethic. So when you have a combination of those three things, you're super competitive. And then that means I don't care if you're playing chess. I don't care if you're playing 2K. I don't care if you're whatever it is, this person wants to win. That type of competitive edge. When you're talking about like God-given ability and raw talent, if we're talking about a Victor Wembanyama, I mean, he's 7'4" for crying out loud. He has the ability to dribble like a guard. He has the ability to shoot like Steph. He has raw, ability. And then you couple in the work ethic. And I've seen, in my time in Minnesota, the amount of work that Anthony Edwards put in the gym. And prior to being around Anthony Edwards, I was around Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving on a day-to-day basis for a few years. And so I saw what hard work, what that looked like. And so I didn't see that in my first couple of years with Anthony Edwards, but by year 3 and year 4 being around him, he was adopting a lot of the practice habits that I would see regularly from Kevin Durant. When you have a combination of those 3 things, you have the ability to be a really special player in this league. There are some guys who have raw ability who don't work hard. There are some guys who work hard, but they don't have that real competitive, I hate to lose edge. And Wembanyama is, again, one of those players who has all 3. He hates to lose. I've seen him in practice. He's the first one in the gym. He's the last one to leave. It's a cliche, but it's true when you're talking about Victor Wembanyama. And as I said before, he's an alien. He's 7'4" and has all these just ridiculous raw abilities. And so it's fantastic to see. And then what's adding an extra layer of intrigue to the series with the defending champions is the fact that he has a real dislike and hate for Chet Holmgren and OKC at large. And that plays a factor in a series like this too. OKC could certainly come back and win, but they're going to have to develop the same amount of hate for the Spurs that they have for them. I saw the same thing with the Timberwolves. The Timberwolves were shorthanded against the Denver Nuggets in their opening round series. And even though Anthony Edwards was hurt for a stretch in that series, other guys were out of the lineup, they still found a way to take down the Denver Nuggets off of sheer hate. We saw this in the 90s with, talking about old, we saw this in the 90s with the Pacers and the Knicks. That wasn't dislike in that series. That was hate all those years that they played against one another. And so that's what makes it fascinating. Last night was fun, seeing the Knicks come, not fun, but if you're just a random basketball fan, it was fascinating watching, Jalen Brunson go off in the fourth quarter and seeing the Knicks storm all the way back. As a pure basketball fan, seeing a comeback like that and go to overtime was wild. But there's a different level of intrigue in the Western Conference because this is a brewing rivalry, 2 really young teams. You have the MVP runner-up, and there's true hate and dislike between these 2 franchises. And that just takes the competition to a whole other level. And so we saw 2 overtimes in game 1 in a thriller. I'm excited to see what we're going to, what these guys have in the tank for game 2 tonight.
To no one's surprise, people thrilled to hear Michael Grady back on these airwaves. So, MG, we appreciate the time. We'll end with this. Again, it is, of course, Indy 500 week here. I remember how cool it was for me when Scotty Johnson came up to me and was like, hey, will you voice over a couple 500s and 60 coming up here? And I'm like, yeah, sure. And I have a feeling we'll probably hear your voice doing a couple of those this weekend. So whether it's that, whether it's something more from a radio background, do you have a favorite 500 memory that you want to share?
Someone's going to have to tweet you before I go off, but it was the race. It was the one race where I went as a fan. For all my years in Indianapolis, I was working in some capacity, but I went 1 year as a fan, and I was sitting in turn 4 when I forget who it was ran into the wall when they had the lead on the final lap.
Yeah, J.R. Hildebrand.
J.R. Hildebrand. And so I'm watching. Looks like J.R. is going to win. He just has to make the final turn. Hits the wall. So that was the only one I was able to go as a fan. But so many others, either having some capacity with, I ran the board for a number of years. I mean, this is going back to my early start with the radio network. I would basically make sure the commercials ran on WIBC during the race. And so I was just sitting in the studio, 20 whatever years old, doing that. And then fast forward several years, I was, in the pits working for RTV6 during the race. It's not even on RTV6 anymore, if I'm not mistaken. So that once again highlighting how long it's been since I was had a part of it. But I think what I really appreciate from my time, and I'm going to be back at a race soon, 1 May, but what I really appreciated is that initially, I grew up a basketball guy. I was Pacers, Colts, Pacers, Colts, Pacers, Colts. And then it was like, the race. But the more I went and the more I saw familiar faces every May, the more I would see, families or see a grandmother who had been going to the race for 60 years, see another gentleman who had been going for 50 years, seeing kids follow their parents as a new tradition was brought on by their family. You just realize how it's the race itself, how the speedway overall is woven into the fabric of the community, and the appreciation that I developed over time is probably one of my fondest memories of growing up and working in Indianapolis. I put it right up there with my time with covering the Colts, with covering the Pacers, and working for the Pacers, of course, which is near and dear to my heart. I missed the most of my time leaving Indianapolis covering high school sports, and especially basketball. But covering the Indianapolis 500 and the tradition of it all is a special memory, and I know that it'll be a special weekend once again.
Always love hearing that voice. Michael Grady with us here on the Payless Liquors Hotline. MG, congrats on everything. We can't thank you enough for joining us here. And we'll be watching tomorrow night as the Fever's next opponent, the Valkyries, and Liberty. Thanks, MG.
All right, guys, don't get too messed up on carb day.
Don't have to tell me twice. That's Michael Grady right there on the Payless Liquors Hotline. We are well over, but I think for the right reasons. We'll come back. Wrap it up here, Fan Morning Show.
This is the Fan Morning Show with Kevin Bowen and James Boyd.
Well, thank you to Michael Grady. That'll be up on the podcast. And a lot of people reached out, enjoyed hearing MG's voice. And Marshall Pruitt back in that 8 o'clock hour. He kind of got us up to speed with where things are going to be at expectation-wise. Alexander Rossi, Pato Award in a car, and albeit a rebuilt car coming up on Friday. And then a little Fever action. Bria Goss joining us, and they are a massive favorite tonight. 13.5 points there. I know nothing about the Portland Fire. I can't name one person on their roster.
Yeah, one of the real funny things that we actually got sent over from our guy John Nolan was that the last time that the Portland Fire played in Indiana, Aaliyah Boston and Caitlin Clark weren't even born. So there you have it. Quite the revival there.
Oh, I didn't even realize they used to be in the league?
Yeah, they were a part of the league in the early 2000s. And shout out to one of the assistants, Tully Bevilacqua. Hope I'm saying that correctly. Used to play for the Fire. Now she works for the Fever, also played for the Fever during her playing days. So she's got a full circle moment on her hands tonight. I wrote a story about it in The Athletic. Go check it out.
All I remember is Cynthia Cooper, Cheryl Swoops, and the Houston Comets. That's about all I got for
Getting everybody back.
Hensley Legal Group Command Center. It happens. Hire Hensley. Kevin Bowen and James Boyd along with Mark Dykton. We're signing off. Everybody have a great Wednesday. We'll see you tomorrow, 7 a.m.